Welcome everybody, can you hear me okay? I'd like to call the meeting to order. Before we start and get into public comment, I want to just bring the public's attention. There was a little confusion on the policy that came out, and it will be up for discussion tonight, obviously. But the sentence, no student will be required to use a specific type of a restroom. When that was put in there, and Ernest will explain this later, that meant can be open to multiple interpretations, so we'll clear that up tonight. But I'm going to hand it over to Leah, and she's going to run the policy.
So we call the policy committee to order. We're going to start with public comment. According to policy 903, public comment, which is limited to 3 minutes, should be directed to the presiding officer rather than individual board members, district employees, or members of the public. For confidentiality and privacy rights, specific comments regarding particular individuals must be communicated privately to the school board and superintendent via email at psdschoolboard@penridge.org. So I have one public comment paper. Is that all of them?
Well, there's 3 other ones for after each
Okay,
meeting.
all right, cool.
Is that the one?
All right, so first on the list, I have Jamie Hunt.
Jamie Hunt, Hilltown Township. I'm not quite sure what you meant by the talking about or explaining it, but my understanding was the bathroom policy was going to be open for anyone to use any bathroom. It doesn't matter about their gender. So that's what I wanted to speak about. I used to be a special education teacher in Bristol Township, and I just wanted to share my experience there because Bristol Township at one point did have this bathroom policy, and I don't think the administration or the school board really foresaw any of the things that actually took place when they decided to do this. I don't see any kids in the audience, but some of the things that I will say are for a more mature audience.
Just so we are live streaming this.
Okay. So when Bristol Township decided to do this, they lost complete control over their schools. Students were, I was in a middle school, students in the middle school and the high school now knew that they could go into any bathroom at any time and do whatever they wanted. Teachers had no say over what was happening in there. And quite frankly, everyone lost control and did not want to step in because that was the rule in place. There were drug deals every morning in the bathroom. It was a revolving door. There were sexual things that people were doing to each other. So they were going in, they were selling drugs, they were going in, they were doing sexual favors to each other, and they were leaving the bathroom. And this was occurring all throughout the day in middle school and in high school. The other thing that was occurring was because they're kids and they will find a way to do anything. I don't know if they created an app or a chat or airdropped a big text message, but they were reserving the bathrooms for different times of the day for relationships and couples to use the bathroom and go in there and have sex. And if other kids tried to use the bathroom, they were beat up for interfering and interrupting. And they were airdropping the list of what couple was going at what time at lunch and at any point during the school day. I'm not even touching upon the fact that now no one feels comfortable going in there except this small percentage of kids who decided to take over the school. But it just became very uncomfortable for everyone. And I think it's very naive to think that it won't happen here. I first saw it firsthand, and it was very disturbing. A lot of teachers left. The admin did not change this policy until much later, allowed to tell parents who was going into the bathrooms. That was another thing. So these kids were just taking it upon themselves to do A, B, C, and D throughout the day. So as a teacher, seeing it firsthand in a district that tried it and it didn't, backfire for them, I just wanted to share that, and hopefully you can keep that in mind when moving forward, making your decision. Thank you.
Thank you.
Adam Dunchik, East Rock Hill. So thank you for reviewing this policy the way that the previous bathroom policy was written. It was written by an outside political firm under the cover of executive sessions that avoided public oversight. So I appreciate you doing this the right way. I was going to say you will probably hear some fear mongering, but you can cross out probably. She obviously doesn't know what's going on in the bathrooms now. There's a lot of kids are afraid to use the bathroom, so this won't lead to that. A lot of that stuff is happening now with whatever bathroom policy you want. I figured this would not legalize. I don't know, I may be mistaken, but I didn't think this was going to legalize drug dealing in schools. But I don't know, hopefully I'll clear that up tonight. I just hope you keep in mind who these policies are written for. It's not it's for all the kids. We need to keep in mind the security and comfort of all the students, not just the parents who you're going to hear from tonight. I would be guessing most of whom don't even have kids in the school, and they're probably just going on, like I said, the fear mongering of a few people in the community. So thank you for reviewing this, and I hope you do keep in mind who these policies are written for. It's not the adults in the community. It's for the security and safety of the kids. And yeah, thanks.
Thank you. Next, we have Ross McLennan. Ross.
Ross McLennan, Hilltown. I'm sorry about your experience, ma'am. It's not going to happen here. You can laugh all you want. I do trust this to be a good discussion, and I also trust the people I see up here to do a good job on this policy. I'm going to leave it at that. I'm not going to micromanage policy. There were things I saw there that I think you're going to explain, and there were concerns that we just heard here. We don't want this going on in these bathrooms, but we also need to treat each of our students equitably. Okay, so some of this was taken away. I want to talk real quick about diversity if I can. I don't want to be shut down here, but diversity is a fundamental American principle that is important to American governance. It generates innovation and collaboration and has been a key to the American success story. The education provided with DEI is necessary for all students to thrive, not only in the school setting but beyond. I want this board to bring back the DEI committee. We obviously need it. Okay, so I don't know if, I'm not the big techie, but I used Meta AI, and I put a question into it that's appropriate to tonight. I put this question in, and I encourage you to put this question in, because I put it in twice to make sure it came back the same way. When did Penridge School District ban books? Penridge, and this is what came back. These words I'm reading are from Meta AI. Penridge School District implemented a new library policy on September 27th, 2022, which led to the removal of certain books from school libraries. However, the district did not publicly announce the bans or follow established procedures for removing books. A parent, I took the name out, but it'll come up when you type it, discovered the removals and filed a lawsuit against the district violating open records laws, okay? And I'm gonna move on, you can read what it says there. But this book, Perks of a Wallflower, Perks of Being a Wallflower, this book was removed. This was on your shelves. This is the book. Another parent was able to get their hands on this, along with several dozen other books. This book is in fine shape. There's some writing on the inside because I have friends signing it, because I'm taking great pride with putting these books back into this school. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Next, we have Emily Gee.
Emily Geib, East Rock Hill Township. I'm here to speak regarding the bathrooms and locker rooms policy, which you're planning to change under the guise of fear of risk of litigation or enforceability. Ironically, the new chair of the policy committee meeting is the spouse of a member of an organization that has already filed a lawsuit against our district 1 week after her election. Not ironically, the case law you're referring to justify your plans, the only major relevant case in PA was against a district that put a policy in place allowing trans kids into multi-user facilities of their gender identity. The suit was brought by cisgendered students who claimed invasion of their privacy. The courts in this case ruled against the lawsuit, not allowing a finding of invasion of privacy. Part of that decision was based on the fact that the school district, Boyertown, allowed use of the bathrooms by trans students on a case-by-case basis only, and also had single-user facilities available, which we also have. The 11th Circuit ruling on the matter with regard to the 14th Amendment and Title IX specifically mentions, quote, separating school bathrooms based on biological sex passes constitutional muster and comports with Title IX, end quote. Title IX allows for exemptions from sex discrimination when it comes to separate facilities by sex for bathrooms, locker rooms, and sleeping areas. It is highly likely that if the district policy in Boyertown had been like ours, where multi-user facilities are biologically sex-based only, but individual user facilities are open to everyone, the court may have also ruled in favor of the district, because there's already accommodation available for all students, so no one is being denied an option that suits their needs. This new board majority, which promised to listen to the whole community and represent everyone and not lead a culture war, is pretending that they are obligated to make this change for legal reasons. This is just not true. You are using legal projection as an excuse to make the majority of students uncomfortable. If it's a matter of comfort, why does one group's comfort outrank another group's? How is opening shared bathroom spaces to everyone and removing protections from locker room spaces supposed to make anyone more safe? How many of you have daughters? How many of you have told your daughters that if they are uncomfortable in a situation, that they need to remain quiet and continue to be uncomfortable in order to ensure the comfort of a man? Really honestly answer that question. That's what you are effectively planning to tell every female student in our entire school district, and it's disgusting. Your other claimed excuse, enforceability, is also not a viable reason to change anything. You've been unable to enforce the no vaping rule in the bathrooms for a long time. Are you going to remove the no vaping rule? The bathrooms in the high school are already a mess, with many of them still left locked up and closed on a daily basis. How do you plan to enforce allowing all students in those spaces safely? That's honestly what will open the district up to liability.
Thank you. Next, we have Daniel Levengood.
Hello, my name is Daniel Levengood. I am Bedminster Township. I'm here to touch base on the restroom agenda. I identify as the head attendant of this meeting, and I deny the motion. That doesn't hold any legitimacy. To allow kids that are adolescent and not mature enough to make those decisions is just to say, oops, sorry about that. It's unintelligent. It's opening the kids up to more crime, more bad things to happen to them. Just because you identify as something doesn't make it so. Either you are or you are not. Yes, I do believe you should have gender-neutral restrooms, but they should be single use. To allow male and female to commingle when they're not mature enough or responsible enough to make those decisions is in the eyes of the courts. The courts don't hold them responsible enough to be held accountable for their actions. So the parents will be held accountable for those kids' actions, and that's unfair. I don't want one group to be ostracized over the other, but you have to be intelligent when you make these decisions, and allowing kids the power to make those decisions is unintelligent. I hope you guys make the best decision based on the right thing to do, I guess. I don't know. Kind of falls short there. Thank you.
Next is Matt Carbonaro.
Good evening, Matt Carbonaro. Public comment pertains to policy 720. The current board majority ran on a platform advocating for increased transparency. In the interest of transparency, why did the current board majority not tell the community during the campaign that it would reverse the sex-based bathroom and locker policy? One could assume this decision was strategic in nature because of the outcome of the election would undoubtedly have been quite different if the community had known what you had planned to do. The current board majority also ran on a platform promising to represent the entire community of far-left voices. As a community member, I am here to inform you that I vehemently disagree with the proposed changes to the bathroom and locker room policy. Title IX prohibits discrimination on the basis of sex, but it expressly permits separating the sexes when it comes to bathrooms and other living facilities. The bathroom and locker room policy put in place by the prior board essentially codified what schools had been providing since the beginning of time: sex-based multi-use bathrooms and locker rooms. The prior board went a step further by implementing a reasonable accommodation, allowing students who feel uncomfortable using a multi-user facilities for any reason to use a single facility. This policy not only respects the privacy needs of all students, it also protects all students, and that is why it must be kept in place. And I'll end with this. I do wish the current policy chair will recuse herself with this policy and any policies going forward due to many conflicts of interest. Thank you.
Thank you. Next is Shannon Harris.
Shannon Harris, Hilltown Township. Again, I just want to say from the last board meeting where I spoke of this, Mrs. Rash, you need to step down. You have a conflict of interest. Your husband is on Pair Up Society, which is providing the litigation against the school district. You have a total conflict of interest. I'm going to go far as to say that this could go under RICO, where you're colluding to get things passed during policy. So you're violating your oath of office. I'm not telling you to step down from the board, but you certainly should not be in charge of policy. I want to know why this board is doing this policy anyway right now. There's no PA law that has changed Title IX right now at the state level. There's no federal law. The only thing that's been changed is that there's 2 executive orders for the Biden administration, which are not law, that have provided the Department of Ed to provide guidance, and that was done in 2022. So they've left it up to this, will come out soon, hasn't come out yet, so why are you changing this now? There is nothing that is telling this board to do that. PSBA. So Red Lion School District in 2023 just passed a standing policy where bathroom use is based on gender identification at birth. It's still standing policy. The ACLU threatened them. They're like, oh well, this is what our community wants. There's no litigation against them. You don't have to comply with the demands of the Democratic Party. What I'm going to read to now is an article from the York Dispatch, and the PSBA actually sides with this too. They're talking about the Doe versus Boyertown, which someone also previously talked about as your reason why you should be doing this. Well, a Curry, who is a representative of the PSBA, said in an article, the court decision referenced simply does not hold that transgender students have the right to use the bathroom that aligns with their gender identity. So they're saying that court case does not align with what, basically saying that you should change your policy. That makes sense. You're just using that as precedent to try and influence this board. The PSBA has a website outlining the current legal status of these Title IX related issues, but stops short of giving school districts specific policy recommendations. Curry said that the PSBA doesn't make recommendations for policies without having a case law or statutory law backing it. Now, that had already happened, so they're saying that's not it. We're not recognizing Boyertown versus Doe as legal precedent. They're saying if and when there is a legal precedent for the entire state of Pennsylvania addressing the rights of transgender students to use the bathroom that aligns with gender identity, PSBA will advise districts accordingly and devise appropriate policies. That has not happened. You guys need to understand that. I'll finish talking later. Thank you.
Thank you. Next we have Kim Badillion.
Kim Badillion, Percy Borough. Hello, hello board members. In 2020 and 2021, the divisive and frankly racist Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Initiative snuck into our district. Included in that initiative was radical gender theory, which posits unscientifically that a boy can be a girl can be a boy, they can be both, or they can be neither. Radical gender theory activists, many of who are in this room right now, clamored for the removal of policies that called for sex-based private spaces, such as bathrooms and locker rooms. Instead, these activists pushed for policies that allowed students to use the facilities based on what gender they felt like on any given day. Knowing this, in November of 2021, the community elected a slate of school board directors who had campaigned on kicking out DEI and keeping private spaces separated by sex. As the saying goes, promises made, promises kept. The school board directors who were recently elected in 2023 ran on a campaign focused on academic achievement, financial responsibility, transparency, and local control of curriculum. In what can only be described as a bait and switch, these same school board directors now seek to reverse the policy that keeps boys out of girls' private spaces and vice versa. Once the community becomes fully aware of this bait and switch, and they will, it is highly likely the voters will respond by flipping the board once again in 2025, and any changes to the sex-based policy will be reversed. For those of you who ran on a platform of increased transparency and a promise to represent the entire community regardless of political affiliation, I challenge you to prove it. By first surveying all adult residents in the district to seek their input and suggestions on the bathroom and locker room policy. In addition to parents with kids currently enrolled in Penridge, this survey should also be open to the community at large, given that any individual who attends a school-sponsored event, including the art show, sports, concerts, and plays, would be impacted by changing the policy regarding bathroom and locker room. I believe a community-wide survey would engender community buy-in, as well as weed out any unintended consequences, such as the ones Mrs. Hunter talked about. Thank you.
Thank you. Next is Richard Young.
All right, Richard Young, Percy. I just want to go on the record that I am the father of 3 children, 3 girls, 2nd grade, kindergarten, and soon to be coming up kindergarten, with a 4-year-old wife. So, there's concern that I have with this, for well-being my children going forward, and as they go through their elementary school days and into middle school and high school.
Thank you. Next, we have Laura Foster.
Laura Foster, East Rock Hill Township. I'm a parent of 2 children in the district. I have 2 daughters. I'm also a co-founder of Ridge Network. We are a group of engaged parents, alumni, parents, and community members whose goal is to defend all students' rights to a safe and welcoming learning environment. I'm going to speak on Policy 720. I want to thank our new board members for making tonight happen. Tremendous effort has gotten us to this point. For almost a year, the LGBTQ plus kids in the school have endured institutionalized discrimination. Through my work in Ridge, we have had the opportunity to connect with many LGBTQ plus students about their experiences at Penn Ridge. These are some of the quotes from the students from our last meeting. I don't feel comfortable being myself. My mental health is suffering, my anxiety. Way worse than last year, way less safe, even less safe physically. I hear comments like, go kill yourself. I'm afraid I'm going to get jumped. In fact, just moments before one of these conversations happened, one student shared a story of how another male student jumped on their back and yelled in their ear. They talked about how they wanted to make themselves feel smaller and invisible in the school. In specific regard to the bathrooms, LGBTQ plus students made these statements. I feel unsafe at the regular ones, referring to the sex-based bathrooms. I don't even know where the single-use bathrooms are. I don't want to scare the cisgender kids. Some students shared that they held their urine all day as they were fearful to use the regular bathrooms or single-use bathrooms were too far away. I anticipate several members of our current board will make unproven assertions about the safety of the bathrooms with the new proposed policy. The problem with this argument is that there'll be nothing besides a bunch of Google searches on anti-gay cases. As a board, it's not your role to rewrite Title IX. None of the paralegals here in the audience get to rewrite Title IX. It is not your job to disregard Dr. Moomin's Dear Colleague letter issued just 2 weeks ago, urging districts to abide by Title IX. Please don't gamble away our district or our children because you don't like the law. Sex assigned at birth, gender identity or expression, affectional or sexual orientation, and differences in sex development are protected classes, as declared by OCR. Protected means you can't discriminate against them. People who are uncomfortable about protecting queer kids because of their own implicit bias, it doesn't matter. You can't discriminate against these kids. The eyes of the nation are once again upon Penn Ridge. Make no mistake that the Office of Civil Rights is closely watching all of these board meetings. We have been on the wrong side of history for far too long. You have a chance now to start to chip away at the wall of hate that has been placed upon our queer students. Do the right thing. Thank you.
Okay, oops. That is it for public comment. Thank you everyone who came up and shared their thoughts today on the bathroom policy. The first agenda item is the standing agenda item we have at all policy meetings, where we're going through the policy update plan. Tonight, you probably saw on the agenda that we have second read for transportation and enrollment of students with the changes that were discussed the last meeting as they stand. There weren't substantial comments on it. Obviously, we have first read of the restrooms and locker rooms. What is on deck are going over policy 109 around resource materials. We want to incorporate feedback from the librarians, just clarify things that have been confusing in the community around how this works, what's happening with books, what different verbiage in these policies mean, etc. And then we're also going to visit public comment, the 903 policy. PSD just released a new version of that, and there's also been some public comment on that. So that is what is coming up. The first thing we're going to go through is the bathroom policy. I'm going to hand it over to my colleague, Mr. Johnson. Well, not my colleague, Mr. Johnson. I don't work here. And just want to reiterate that it is very important that we hear from everyone in the community. We know that this is a confusing and can sometimes be very unsettling topic for people. The purpose behind how we want to work moving forward is going through first read, walking the entire community through what we're using to base our decisions on, and building a policy that works with administration, working through it with the building principals, et cetera, but also working through things with our solicitor and other just best practices around these topics. So on that, I will hand it over to Ernest, Mr. Johnson.
Thank you, Ms. Rash.
There you go. He's got it. It's the speed button. So it'll go left. There you go. Yep.
Can everyone hear me?
Yeah. And also, welcome to your first policy committee meeting.
Thank you very much. I am honored to be here. The first statement I would like to make, just to clarify for the community, and I think we all know this and the board as well, I want to emphasize the fact that this is a first read of Policy 720. Nothing has been changed. This is a first read. It's an opportunity for the community, as you've done so well, to share your concerns, to share what you think has gone well in terms of the first draft of this policy. And again, it's a first read. Our intent as district personnel, and I'm not going to speak for the board because I'm not a member of the board, but what I will say is that our goal is to always make sure your children are safe under all circumstances to the best of our ability. And when there are challenges, we want to work and partner with you as parents, as community members, as concerned citizens to ensure that your children feel safe and receive a world-class education. That's what we are here to do as educators. There's many educators on this stage with me right now. And I think as community members, what I've heard tonight and prior to this meeting even is a lot of passion for not only your children, but all children. I think we can all hang our hats and hold on to the fact that we want to see our students succeed. We want to provide an environment for them that is safe. We want to provide an environment for them that is welcoming. It's not what I've read is 1% versus the 99%. We don't have the luxury of looking at the situation like that. We have to look at the 100%. Every kid in this school district matters. And how do we provide them with opportunities to excel? What can we do better? We're not opposed to hearing from you, obviously, as a community. That's why the first item on this docket was public comment. And that's why we end with public comment, because it's very, very important and invaluable to us to hear what you have to say and to take that feedback and really digest it, look at it, and make meaningful changes that, again, recognize all of our students, not 1%, and certainly not 99%, but all of them. And what does that look like? So that's the spirit that we enter tonight in and moving forward. As long as I'm here, the superintendent, Mr. Barrios and his cabinet, and all the teachers and professional staff members, from cafeteria workers to bus drivers to supervisors, all of our end goal is to support students, to support your children, and to make them feel affirmed, regardless of what they look like, regardless of their orientation, regardless of how they identify. It's to make sure every single student feels like they matter.
So the first part I wanted to go through for this first reading is really just looking at the purpose of the policy. The purpose of the policy is privacy and respect for the rights of all students, including staff, and that's essential to Penn Ridge School District. That includes our restrooms and all facilities within the school. For the purposes of this document, we're going to focus on restrooms. And our goal, I heard many community members talk about local, state, federal laws, and local, state, and federal laws, depending on your position and where you sit, could look different. And that's a part of the reason why we wrote up legal precedent and identified some case law that helps guide our decisions. It's not why we're making these decisions, but case law tries to help inform what we do. The other area that I want to highlight is the definitions contained within this policy, within this document. When we look at restrooms, we're going to look at, before we get into assigned sex at birth, gender identity, 3 areas of bathrooms. You have single-user restrooms, which means a bathroom that's intended for only one person at a time. We have multi-user restrooms, which are what we traditionally know as gang bathrooms. Many different students can go into the bathrooms at one time. And then we have bathrooms that we may, operative word here meaning may, would be establishing bathrooms based on gender identity. And that would mean bathrooms that, regardless of your gender or sex assigned at birth, students would have an opportunity to use those specific bathrooms. There are other definitions contained now within this policy. Assigned sex at birth, obviously your biology, your DNA, gender identity, gender expression, transgender, and also biological sex, taking into account your anatomy, chromosomes, hormones that inform whether a person is male, female, or in some cases intersex. Mr. McCullough, if you could continue to go down. So, okay, you can stop there. All students, and again, our purpose and our function within this policy is to really look at a very narrow, specific part of our school, and that's the restrooms. And what we intend to do and what we hope to do and what we're going to review as we listen to your public comment is what is best for our students. How can we represent within these restrooms a comfort level for all students within these bathrooms to be able to use? And shortly I'll go through a slide deck, a PowerPoint presentation where we really talk about what that can look like in Penn Ridge School District. Again, emphasizing the fact that this is purely a first read. There will be no vote this evening. There will be a second read similar to other policies that we will review tonight and talk about what the first read looked like and open it up at the end for public comment. Again, within these bathrooms, our goal is to ensure that every student has a choice. Mr. Wurz started, the board president started with a point of clarification, which I would like to go into now. That point of clarification is that when you talk about bathrooms that are based on gender or single-user bathrooms or multi-user bathrooms, if I'll use myself as a personal example. I, Ernest Johnson, let's say I identify as a male, it does not give me the right as a male to go into a girl's restroom, a restroom designed for female students. What the spirit of this is looking at is people who identify as the opposite gender using restrooms based on their identity, what they identify as. And that's the purpose of this particular policy. It's not that students will not be receive potentially consequences or meet with a counselor or an administrator, but it's again, those bathrooms that are designed for multi-users, students who identify differently than their sex assigned at birth or their biological sex, again, may have an opportunity to use those multi-user bathrooms based on how they feel. Mr. McCullough, you can continue to go down. One of the other items that I read related to staff access. Staff have separate bathrooms, so staff do not use student bathrooms. There are professional staff bathrooms throughout our schools that our staff members can use. So one of the concerns I heard related to, will male staff be using female bathrooms? Male staff have their own bathrooms that they use throughout the school. Mr. McCullough, if you could pull up the, thank you. Let's go to slide 2. The content of this particular slide deck, these are the different objectives that we're going to look at. Current facilities, safety and privacy. There may be some redundancy in this. Legal precedent and bathroom needs for our students. And what do our next step look like besides the fact that we need a second reading? If you go into a bathroom within this school right now, this is what you would see. Our current facilities, this is what they look like. We do not, at this particular juncture, have true single-user bathrooms. What we
Mr. Johnson, if I may interject, so I think, sorry to interrupt you, when I think of true single-use bathroom, I think of one toilet, one sink, or one urinal, one toilet, one sink. We do not have that in Pembridge High School. I think the conception or perception of the public is that we have single-use bathrooms. We do not have that. So if you go outside of this large group instruction room, you hang a right, you will see 2 restrooms on the left-hand side. They are labeled single-use. Most folks, when you think of a single-use bathroom and newer facilities, like my current employer, my former school district, brand new construction, we had several single-use bathrooms, as I described to you. So we do not have true single-use bathrooms in this building. So I think there may have been some confusion. I'm a resident of this township. I follow the school board meetings. So when I thought single-use before, I thought this facility or this physical plant had these bathrooms. That is not the case. So I thought in the spirit of transparency, we would provide some images for the public for you to consume and digest as we move forward and make an informed decision. So sorry to interrupt you, Mr. Johnson.
No problem. So to echo Mr. Barrios' comment, again, that's what our bathroom facilities look like right now. Potentially, depending on the outcome of the first and second reading and what the board votes on at some point, we could convert these multi-user bathrooms into single-user bathrooms, which essentially means that we would create some sort of, think of an airport, occupied versus vacant, and that key lock that switches on and off, which would then change multi-user bathrooms to single-user bathrooms, which in the spirit of single-user, again, one occupant at a time with some sort of indication on the lock whether or not that bathroom is occupied or vacant. Our multi-user bathrooms, we will continue, obviously, regardless of the potential change to the policy, we will continue to have multi-user bathrooms with assigned sex at birth being identified through signage. Again, our bathrooms have cameras outside of the doors, which is really merely a preventative measure. Obviously, we can't have cameras in bathrooms for a lot of different reasons, privacy being the main one, and obviously appropriateness. When we talk about the locker rooms, we also have individual bathroom stalls within those locker rooms. Again, this policy focuses specifically on bathrooms at the moment. Mr. McCullough? When we talk about bathrooms, our main concern relates to safety and privacy, and safety and privacy can look different. I remember one community member spoke about vaping and will we change the vaping policy because it's quote unquote not working. And I think nationally, schools across the country have challenges with vaping, detecting vaping. The high school team has done an excellent job of going in and out of bathrooms, monitoring bathrooms. We actually just hired a female security guard who can help in terms of monitoring female restrooms at this juncture. But our concerted effort has been on ensuring the safety of all students in bathrooms, not only from a preventative measure, but also in terms of harassment and bullying. I don't believe, I've had conversations with Mr. Ketty, I've been in the high school, I've talked to his assistant principals. I do not believe, and I'm new to Penn Ridge, I've been here, I believe this is week 6, that we have a pervasive problem with harassment and bullying. I do know that when there's an incident reported, that the incident is investigated thoroughly. Some of it may reach me depending on the nature of it, and if it is a bona fide case of harassment and bullying, which is a coming attraction for us in terms of policy that we will review at a future date. Fighting and assault, I think, again, high schools throughout the Commonwealth and throughout the nation, there are challenges. Why do kids fight in bathrooms? Because it's private, you're less likely to get caught until the screaming and shouting and yelling occurs, and then you have teachers flooding in. Again, not a pervasive problem within this school district, but again, we are taking steps to be active in terms of supporting kids and making good decisions to avoid physical confrontations and even verbal confrontations. In terms of privacy, we're talking about medical and health needs for our students. There are a variety of reasons why students want to use restrooms to have a higher level of privacy. There's also reasons related to, as I think we can all attest, when you look at TikTok challenges, photographs, video recordings, these are all things that we want to try to prevent and educate our students about being responsible students and making good choices and ensuring that we have a positive school community. Again, these are different areas that we want to concentrate on as a school and as a school district. Vaping, drug use, harassment, bullying, fighting, even assault. I would like to point out one of the things that our students are very familiar with. Safe to say, I'm not sure if you as a community are familiar with it. However, Safe to Say is an anonymous reporting system for you as community members, as parents. It's through the governor's office where students can report, parents can report, community members can report anything that they feel compromises the safety of our school community. And provide a tip, and that tip will be thoroughly investigated. And then what we do is we maintain your anonymity. So you don't have to put your name in it. Again, it's an anonymous reporting system for all individuals within the Commonwealth. One of the things that the high school team has done to mitigate loitering, which is a significant problem, again, across the Commonwealth and I'm sure nationally, is to mitigate students who are in bathrooms not to use the bathroom. The purpose of the bathroom, obviously, is to go in there, do what you need to do, and get out. Unfortunately, on occasion, students like to hang out in the bathroom for a variety of reasons. I don't think it's pervasive here in terms of students eating in the bathrooms, hanging out in bathrooms, but the high school team has done an excellent job of going in and out of bathrooms to ensure that loitering is minimized. Privacy, exposure, our bathroom stalls have doors, again, for privacy purposes. And one of the things that you, as I'm sure parents and community members, teach your children is to be respectful of everyone's privacy, be respectful of everyone's physical space. And we certainly share that message to students. Mr. Ketty and his high school team do as well. If students require additional privacy, we ask that they go see either their school counselor or their assistant principal, or even Mr. Ketty, high school principal, to ensure that they have that privacy for whatever reason. We're not here to question students, to challenge students. If a student asks us and informs us that they need a higher level of privacy, we will certainly provide that. These are the cases that we have reviewed. Again, it is not an exhaustive list. This isn't the only thing that we've looked at, but these are things that have helped guide the change that we are presenting you tonight. Again, as a first read, We've heard the comments from the community. We appreciate the comments from the community, and that certainly will be taken into account from the board, as well as the district office. And again, these are different cases. Doe versus Boyertown, which was referenced earlier tonight. You can see our policy related to 103. You can see Title IX information. And if you look at, there's some legislative information on PDE's website right now from Dr. Mumine, where he talks about, and again, it's not law, it's legislative guidance, where he talks about students who identify in a certain way having access to different bathrooms, even bathrooms that are different from their assigned sex at birth. Mr. McCullough? Bathroom needs for our students: safe, accessible, and different options for students throughout the school. The district is responsible, we are responsible for creating a safe environment for your children, free from discrimination. I know that's what you want. I didn't hear any single person here tonight talk about, I want my child discriminated against. What I heard was passionate pleas regarding how you feel and where you stand in terms of your children and providing them with the safest environment possible. Do we want to protect the district from litigation? Obviously, but is our message here tonight, because of the potential for litigation, this is why we're making these decisions? No. I can stand up here and look every one of you in the eyes and tell you with all certainty, our goal is to ensure that students feel safe here, students feel supported here, and we provide them with an opportunity to have an excellent education, to feel safe, to use facilities within the school, to participate in activities within the school that align with their beliefs. Mr. McCullough? Next steps. At this juncture, what this policy is intended for us to look at tonight and in the future is we're looking at starting with the high school and then consideration in future meetings for the middle and elementary schools. We're now going to review under our next agenda item. We're going to take a look at a second reading of two different policies.
Well, that's what, do we want to just address any board members' comments right now around 7:20? I think that's what we'd like to, so thank you for your presentation, it's very informative. And just any comments from board members or questions?
Yeah, I do. Thank you, Ernest. My main question that I'm not clear on is, our most recent discussion was, and you weren't there, that we would have single-use bathrooms, we would have biological sex bathrooms, and we would add a gender identity bathroom. I'm unclear if that is still how this reads, or, so will there be a place for a girl to go to the bathroom that under no circumstances a male can walk in?
So under this, and thank you for acknowledging that I wasn't there. The way it reads right now, what we would be looking to do is to have, and I'll define again just for the collective, single user bathrooms for anyone to use, and it encourages obviously privacy. Multi-user bathrooms which are designed to be assigned sex at birth. The caveat here is that if student X is sitting there, student X is a biological male but identifies as a female, that student, said student, would be able to use that female student multi-user bathroom.
Any female multi-user bathroom?
Yes, correct. Not just the single user bathrooms, which are again keyed a certain way, and not just the gender identity bathroom. Those students would have the option of using the three different bathrooms. Again, students who identify in a certain way, not if Bradley here decided he wanted to use and he identifies as a male, he would not be able to use that assigned sex at birth bathroom, the multi-user bathroom. But if he identified as a female, he could use that bathroom. Is that clarify.
Yeah, it does. I guess I'm confused how we got, and you might not be able to answer this because you weren't there, how we got from where we were last week to there. And what would be the purpose of a bathroom based on identity? If you don't really need that, you can just go and a girl can go into a boy's bathroom. Or a boy can go in either one, really. But
That's not what we're saying, though. It's not saying that it's an open, free-for-all, anyone can go in anyone.
But a male can go, and that's under this, a biological male can go into my daughter's bathroom, correct?
If they identify as female,
But there would
then,
still be a biological male in the woman's bathroom,
yes.
that's my
So
question.
yes, it would be a biological male who identifies as female,
Right, that's just not what we
while
discussed
working
or how
with
this
the
works
staff
out.
at the building and the guidance counselors, et cetera. Like, it's not meant to be that a student can walk in and self-declare it and be able to use whatever bathroom they
Well,
want.
regardless of who's declaring it, my question is, a biological male can go into my daughter's bathroom. And I'm just curious how we got here in a week, because that's not all what we discussed last week. And again, I know you weren't there, Mr. Johnson, but everybody else was, and that wasn't what we left with. And I know for me, if that's where this ends, my daughter will go to not a private school, a charter school, because I won't let my tax dollars fund an institution that will not protect
So I think maybe some of the things we need to talk through are like the concerns around that. So we understand that, again, we talked about in the beginning, that these sort of topics are difficult to talk through. They're concerning for people because it's foreign. It can give feelings of like suspicion and insecurity, but we also need to understand, like, how do we move forward with this, where we're walking through the safety issues, we're walking through the privacy issues. So the concern around that is based on what?
Well, the concern is based on, the complaint right now against our school district claims that by offering single-sex bathrooms, we're not offering enough possibilities to transgender students. Now, last year we had 6 of note, and I believe 2 weren't comfortable using the bathroom of their biology. So in a building with 2,700 people, it's somehow discriminatory to put single-user bathrooms for the 6 children who want it. We're saying, yeah, if you don't want to go in the bathroom of your biology, we'll put all these other bathrooms around. But it's not discriminatory to ask the 2,694 other kids to go to the bathroom? It makes no sense. It makes no sense.
Well, and two, the allegation says specifically, the board and school district has not ensured that there is adequate access to these types of facilities for our trans and non-binary students. So then on the flip side, how is that the majority of students use bathrooms based upon their biological sex? So then on the flip side, there's not adequate access for more of the majority. So it's conflicting how there's that allegation.
Can I add something? You guys, when you're done, can't see you, so it's hard to tell. So first thing, I do agree. I thought we were going in a different direction in this, and I think we need to discuss that today. But I do want to add that, with that applause, that these are real kids out there, and you might think they're only 4, but they are somebody's kids, and they care about them. And when we applaud because we're putting them down too much, we have in the last few years, and we're making them much harder to succeed here. So think about that for a while. We can make a system where it's both, and everybody can get along, but don't forget those kids, all right? It's easy to just clap on these things, and they need our help.
That doesn't mean that's what the applause was for, Ron. They're not singling those students out. That's your opinion, but that's not. You can't make that statement and say that's what the applause was for.
I'm telling you how they perceive it. These kids perceive this as being put down.
And for the record, let me just add then, Ron. For me, in no way do I want to put any kids down. I think we put a lot of work into a policy that no child had to go. If you are a biological boy who identifies as a female, you don't have to go into a bathroom with other biological boys. We are offering other opportunities. And last week we said, okay, well, if single user feels, different than a multi-user, then we'll put a multi-user gender bathroom. You can go in based on how you feel and still be going into a bathroom with several stalls and with other students. But we're worried about every kid in the building, but to take a very small, less than 1% of the students and make them comfortable at the expense of 99% of the students makes no sense. There's no reason we can't have those three options.
Well, I thought that's what we were going.
Well, I mean, I did too, but
The
that
idea that
changed,
we had,
obviously,
that I
in the
talked about was having some biological ones and some gender ones and some single use. And that was what I thought we were talking about. So I think there has to be a balance, and we need to respect everybody and give them an opportunity, but we also need to respect the rights of people who are uncomfortable with that. So I thought there was a compromise in place, but we need to figure that out. We have 12 bathrooms, I believe, 12 gang styles, so that's 24. And we have 3 single use right now, I believe, and we were talking about using the remaining to have some as gender and some as biological. So that was the way I was heading with it, but I'm open to, I'd like to hear what everybody else has to say.
Could someone speak to why locker rooms is not a part of this policy, or what we're thinking there?
I think we're just trying to keep the pace where we're just focusing on one thing at a time. Like, there's not a rush to put a policy through. We can split it up between like a locker room policy versus a bathroom policy, just also because they're designed differently within our district right now. The locker rooms have less options than there are restrooms as far as like actual physical locker rooms. I believe there's 2 of each for like the white gym and the green gym. So as Ron mentioned, we have 12 bathrooms, which makes it easier to walk through different options. The locker rooms would require more thought.
So if the locker rooms are not on this policy, would that mean potentially if this policy would go through that the locker rooms would still be by your biological sex? Because there's no policy in place, would that be the practice? Would that be the understanding?
Well, we'd probably have to work through that, because if this policy gets put in place and overrides 720, previous 720, which did include locker rooms, that does leave locker rooms open to interpretation. I don't think that's something that we'd want to do, so we probably would want to work out both of them to be rolled out at the same time.
I mean, we can also use administrative regulations, and in the meantime, if it's covered under that, that's more up to the administration with board guidance. So that is another option. I don't think we want to marry those 2 together at this point.
I would like to add, I don't, and Mr. Ketty can correct me if I'm wrong, students no longer haven't been changing for PE class. And I think that's why the focus really was on bathrooms.
That is correct,
traditional
Mr. Johnson.
sense.
That students do not change during the instructional day for health and physical education classes.
Can I ask too, where, like PSBA does not have, recommended policy or suggested policy, and when we did the bathroom policy last year, as some community members even mentioned tonight, that this, happy that this was done the right way, but where did this policy come from? Where did language come for this policy?
Language in this policy came from a variety of sources, mainly some of the legal precedents cited, partly also due to some research that I did on my own regarding different categories and different descriptors and definitions of sex, not only biological sex at birth or assigned sex at birth, but other categories for students, and review of policies in the Commonwealth. So a combination of resources were used.
And was this run, this was run by the solicitor, correct? I mean, he's in agreement that our current policy's not, doesn't have a legal standing, that this would be a hold up in court. Or
Yeah,
the new policy would be what would be held up in court.
Yeah, I don't want to speak on the solicitor's behalf,
Yeah.
but he did review.
Yeah, we, it's privileged, rules. Yeah, I mean, we use our solicitor all the time to review things, and wanted to mention that policies are normally written by the staff, and we're the ones reviewing them and giving them feedback, so that's why Ernest is talking about that. That's the way it should be done, and so that's why, where the language comes from, but as far as the legal stuff.
I had a question, just for clarification, in regards to the biological bathrooms. And what we're saying is that it's not like a flip-flop, for example, biological girl bathroom. It's not like one day, oh, I'm identifying as a girl, so I'm gonna go in there. It's not for that. The students that are identified as transgender, those kids that can go to that girl bathroom, is there like a list? Do they go to the guidance counselor, just like talked through so that people know, okay, there's 4 kids that have that ability? Like, is there something like that? Like, or just to kind of get clarification?
Sure, that hasn't been determined in terms of, is there going to be a specific list and who's going to keep the list? But that's certainly something that we can review with the high school team.
Yeah, I just didn't know how that worked. Like if, I mean, how I guess I'm just trying to get clarity of all this. It's new. It's just is it someone that's, you have a biological girl bathroom? Is someone that's going in there transgender that for all purposes you would think would be like a girl? Like, I'm just trying to understand that. So yeah, I mean, I know there's that.
And that's an excellent question.
Just because I understand that it's hard to figure out what kids are going to do, and I understand that fear of, like, if you're just going to open it up, then there's going to be this boy just going, not to say that just because you have boy bathroom, girl bathroom, that if kids are wanting to do something harmful, they're going to, regardless of what the label is there, I get that. But it's just also that knowing that it's not just going to be like, oh, today, just to kind of cover myself, I'm going to say that I'm this, going into a bathroom that's not your biology. I'm just trying to understand it better.
I think there's a delicate balance with that. There's some kids who may not want anyone to know that they identify differently from their sex assigned at birth, and there may be kids who don't want to address it with a staff member, a principal, a counselor, or anyone for that matter outside of their family, or not even their family because they're questioning. So it would be hard for us to say to develop a list or to have kids identify themselves, because in some instances they truly want to keep it private, and we don't want to create more harm by asking the kid to self-identify. So it's a little bit of a balance with that.
Again, just trying to understand.
Sure.
It's so weird you're like all the way down there. So what, to say, just working through this, obviously, like what are then the consequences, I guess, if the fear is if somebody does go in there and just by the sense of saying identify, but is going in there for the wrong reasons, is it something, and I guess we don't have the answers, is that clear, like this is the consequence that's going to happen. And it's not a slap on the hand, because you're essentially like lying and going in and causing harm. You know what I mean? Like, I'm just trying to understand how it would work. I don't think I'm being clear on it, but I'm just trying to figure out, like, what are the consequences if someone is doing something just harmful, as opposed to our kids that do need it. Because the reality is, I feel that the kids that do need it, they're not the ones that we should be fearful of. They're just trying to go to the bathroom. They're just trying to feel comfortable. And I understand that's what we want to do. It's just that fear of the kids that are going to take advantage of that, which is really, I think, the issue.
I think your question is clear. I think what we have to do is, it depends. I hate to give a response like that, but it really depends on the situation, what's happened, and we have to maintain fidelity with our own policies and procedures and really look at this individual circumstance and what occurred and how do we respond as a school and as a district, and following our own policies and procedures regarding the discipline code and what's in those policies, and that's how we respond to it. And I don't think we can have a cookie cutter response, because it really depends on the gravity of the situation, who's involved, and what actually occurred. But again, I do think your question was clear.
Carolyn, I think too, I think I understand your question, but I think you're talking about a scenario where there is the potential for physical harm or some like truly ill will. The concern and what brought this to the school board's attention a year and a half ago, whenever it was, is that with no ill intent, most women are uncomfortable in the bathroom with a male there. And so the point of creating a safe space for everyone, most women, this started with a 14-year-old girl, 18-year-old boy comes in, she had just gotten her period, she's calling her dad from school. I'm not putting my daughter through that. I went in the bathroom out there a couple months ago, thought I was going into a women's bathroom. I come out of the stall, there's a man there. It was neither of our faults, we were both grossly uncomfortable. That's how the majority respond. I didn't think he was gonna jump me, he didn't think I was gonna hurt him. It was grossly uncomfortable for us. I don't want my daughter going through that. I don't think that most of the girls who normally and naturally do feel uncomfortable with a male in the room, when they're peeing, changing a tampon, God knows what they're doing. It's just not, there's another alternative that nobody has to feel that way. A girl can go in a bathroom and know that I'll never see a boy in here. And likewise, we can create a bathroom where if that doesn't bother you at all and that's a close bathroom, go. You know, we can have options. I'm curious where the rest of the board falls on the biological versus gender, because again, it felt to me like we left with a pretty good understanding of where we were heading a week ago and then just went completely different direction. And I think a lot of the community doesn't know where most people stand on it.
Well, I mean, people are allowed to share, the board, anyone on the board is allowed to share their thoughts, questions, comments. There are a few things I do want to clarify though. In an effort to make sure that we're all using the same information and it's correct and accurate. The option that we have right now with the single user options for transgender students, which mathematically might seem like makes the most sense, it does violate the Boyertown reading. The Boyertown isn't just about giving options and enough options. It flat out says that like you cannot force a transgender student to only use single user bathrooms. So that to me, I don't know why we keep discussing that. And then as far as like the uncomfortableness in the bathroom, it's difficult to talk because it's not dismissing it, but I feel like as board members, it's our obligation to kind of break that down into, okay, exactly what does this translate to? Because it doesn't translate to full-grown men walking into the bathrooms with our girl students. Like, no one is saying that. So I don't want us to keep bringing that up to scare people when that's never been on the table.
That's exactly what it translated to, an 18-year-old boy with a 14-year-old girl. That's exactly how this whole thing started.
Yeah, I couldn't agree with that either, honestly.
I said, but it does translate. That's how this started, an 18-year-old boy in the bathroom with a 14-year-old girl.
So, but even with that, I don't know enough about that case. So we should probably definitely get some more information around it. If that was a transgender student or was that someone misbehaving?
No, that was a transgender student.
So then it comes down.
At this point, we had no policy, but we didn't know we didn't have a policy. It was just kind of the administration making exceptions for certain people without a real policy in place. And then a father obviously wrote the school board, and that's what started the whole bathroom thing. But it was in fact an 18-year-old boy who, if I remember right, I could be wrong about this, actually had a beard. He was a grown man in her eyes. She was 14. And she walks out of the bathroom. It was like the second day of school. So that is the issue that we're dealing with.
But I think the difficult thing for students and for the community and even the board is like transgender is something that feels very foreign to people, but like oftentimes there could be a biological boy in the restroom and a child would have no idea because they present very femininely. And the opposite, there could be a biological female transitioning to male walking into the girls' room with a full beard. And so I think instead of trying to get our students and our staff to police this down to a level that does violate students' rights, it does, to sit there and say, show me that you're a girl, show me that you're a boy. Like, we cannot do that. And so our options are to create safe places for all the students, to walk the community through these decisions, because our bathrooms are safe. And so even with this policy, it shouldn't be that a boy is just walking into the girls' room. It should be going through the process of working with the building staff and the principals and the guidance counselors, etc. It should not then translate into that there's like an all points bulletin that this student is now identifying, because that's the privacy line, and that's like the tough line to walk. So I'd like us as a board to really start thinking about, like, understanding how uncomfortable it is, but then trying to walk through what exactly does that mean. Like, is there a true privacy issue when there's stall doors, when there's like any more, is that child at any more issue, like risk of having their privacy violated from a transgender student than they are from a cisgender student? You know, like, it's, instead of focusing on one group of students as the problem, we should have solutions that work for all of our students and allow our staff to mitigate those problems regardless of who's doing them.
Well, I would just like to add that I think we need to respect both sides, and that's what I thought we were trying to come up with. I still think there's an opportunity to do a gender bathroom and a biological bathroom. We leave it up to the administration as to where and when, because we don't understand the situations in there, and also the single use. And I think that respects both sides of the issue and gives people the privacy they need as best we can. I think long term we all want to look at focusing on having more single use and converting those bathrooms. That costs money and can't happen that quickly, so it's not something we can do overnight. But in the meantime, I think that's a good compromise that we should consider, but I do want to hear from other people.
Ron, real quick, one of my concerns right now is we're looking at 1,700 students, and we've got 6 individuals that need to go into this classification, whatever it may be, and that's certainly okay with me. How do we understand which bathroom they use? Is it going to be a card, a swipe card?
No, I think it's just identified by gender or by, I don't know how you would put it.
So that they literally have the right just to walk in, but we have no idea which bathroom they're walking into.
If it's a gender, if it would be just a gender, then you would, you know, if that bothered you, you don't go to that one bathroom, and you would go to a biological bathroom. If you didn't care, which I think most of the kids in the school don't care, they would just go into what their gender was. And that gives us the safety that if some people are concerned about that, they have that aspect, and they have it. It's a compromise, but it does show respect to everybody, which is what I'm trying to accomplish.
Yeah, and Ron, I agree. I think that you're right. You want to have respect for everyone. Did we get any kind of survey from the local students in high school? Have the students weighed in on this issue in any format that says whether it's good, bad, or indifferent? There's a group of individuals that really know what's going on. They're at ground level, so I would suggest before we go any further, we need to get some information from our students to find out exactly where they stand. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Cormack. I'm going to ask the high school principal, Mr. Ketty, who's with us this evening, to talk about some of the outreach you've had with various student groups.
I would be happy to, and thank you, Mr. Barris. I've been working with, I'm relatively new too, so I began my tenure as a principal in end of October, beginning of November. Have met with the majority of all of our activities groups and students on an ongoing basis. Most specifically, We've run some very special programming geared towards the kids as well. I have an open door policy. What I can say is that I think that's not a bad idea, speaking to the students, because I think depending on what students you speak to, they're going to have various different opinions on what's going on.
Just like this audience.
And what I would say is that the majority of the issues since I've stepped into this building, and we have very great kids here. That's the one thing, that we don't have a bunch of kids running around like really messing this place up. All right, but when it specifically comes to the bathrooms, it's the loitering issue that comes in, and then I'm going to stomp a little bit here, and then the disrespect we'll get from individual students. So from an administrative side, what we've been doing, because we speak about the discipline, you asked the $1 million question. How do we discipline that? As Mr. Johnson was saying, we take it on an individual basis, and we work with those students to try to resolve it. If this policy was to change, we would sit down as an administrative team, and that would get put into our student handbook. But at the end of the day, all of the assistant principals and myself are constantly meeting with students to try to triage what the actual issues are. And what I can tell you is you're going to get conflicting information based on who you're speaking to at that time. Is that helpful?
Yes. I still think you should do a survey. Excuse me.
I know last year that Dr. Scheid would remember, I think you were part of it, they did a survey. I want to say only like a third of the kids actually answered it, but it was about how they felt in the bathrooms. And this is when you had to use the bathroom of your biology, and it was still like 50% said they didn't feel safe. There's nothing about gender on the survey though. But it would be interesting to redo that. And are you comfortable, if we're worried about how the kids feel, are you comfortable as a girl with a boy in the bathroom? Do you not care either way? And see. Or like somebody in the audience said, a survey to the community. Because it does affect
I
sports
definitely and don't
everything.
think we'd be opposed to doing a survey from that standpoint.
We could also look at the results that we have from the former survey. I'm not sure which way we would want to have a conversation about that, but I don't think anybody is opposed to a student survey.
I would beg to differ on that. So my concerns about the survey aspect of it though too is that it will of course align with majority, because that's just how numbers work. And it speaks back to, as a district, what is our responsibility to students, whether it's 1 student, 10 students, 100 students. I don't know if this survey is going to be very helpful or be an accurate cut of the student population, but also, even if it is, you're going to have less people agreeing who don't understand what it is, who aren't living that life, who don't have friends in that realm, etc. So it'll always cater to the majority.
I think sometimes surveys, though, we can't confuse it with a survey being a referendum. We can use survey data to help us inform decisions, but I would also like to express the value in having focus groups, and as Mr. Ketty posited, meeting with various stakeholders in different clubs and activities throughout. And I think you can glean and extrapolate some amazing data from having these types of interviews. So I'm interested in reviewing the former survey data. I didn't know this survey actually existed. It predates me. But I would be cautious to, when you issue a survey, that it's not presented in a way that it's a referendum and that you're voting, or the kids are voting to drive policy. We can certainly get this data, help us inform, or help inform our decision moving forward.
I think that, that I agree with Mr. Barrios. I think that being able to use the survey data will definitely help to be able to shape the policy. At the end of the day, I mean, we still have to remain within the bounds of law. There's going to be survey data can present in one way, but we still need to be able to present the policy that's within the bounds of law. Just from personal experience, I've seen mental health ramifications of having to transition through and conceal that from people. And if this policy is helping to save just one life, one child, I mean, I think that that's the end goal. Every child should feel safe. But we also need to make sure that we're accounting for all these children and what they're going through. The person that I know who did transition didn't do it until 15 years after high school. And the discussions that I had with that person made me realize the mental health impact that they had to endure going through high school in that situation where they weren't able to be able to express themselves. And I think that being able to save just that one life is just as important when we take all this into consideration. And I understand that we're looking at this as biological males going into a female bathroom, but they identify as female. And I mean, I would like us to be able to use that language that it is a biological male, not referring to them just as male, that they are a transgender female, that it's not a male going into a female's bathroom. It is a transgender woman going into a male's bathroom. I mean, to me, it just feels almost like it's a dead name. So that's if you ask my 2 cents, that's where I'm at.
In terms of safety of the bathrooms, we said earlier that specific bathrooms were still locked down. Can we speak to that a little bit? What's the cause of that? Lack of resources?
No, in full transparency, from an administrative standpoint, we have not shut down any bathrooms except in very specific times of the day. That would be at the beginning of the day and at the end of the day to prevent students from congregating in bathrooms and to get them outside. That is the only time that since I've been here that we've actually shut down a bathroom. Every other bathroom has been shut down because of either a plumbing issue, and in certain cases, very minimum, we've had some vandalism. So that's when our maintenance staff is shutting that down so that we can fix an issue. But as far as we're not mass shutting down bathrooms throughout days at any point, except in the beginning of the day and the end of the day in bathrooms that we know students have been congregating in, because it just makes sense. What we do is we're able to better allocate our resources by shutting certain bathrooms down, and that way kids are forced to go to other places where we know we have coverage. Does that answer your question?
Yes, thank you.
Now, I would like to add too, like when we talked about the survey, we ran an assembly earlier in March. And that assembly was actually driven by the students and their issues and their needs. What we did was we brought in not all of the groups, everybody was invited, but a lot of the co-curricular clubs came in, we met, we had a very open discussion with them, identified what areas that they wanted to talk about in terms of kindness, empathy, and acceptance, and they developed that repertoire. So a piece of that was the bathroom, and the focus was from the student base from that. There was a good cross-section of club activities. It was more the vaping and the loitering components, which was specifically addressed.
Can you tell us a little bit about the steps that you're taking to reduce the loitering in the bathrooms at the high school?
Sure. I think one of the big steps where we are actually we just hired and onboarded, and Mr. Johnson mentioned this earlier, a female security guard who's here in the mornings. So she helps to that end. But from an administrative standpoint, at any given point throughout the course of the day that we start there are teachers who are assigned for bathroom duties. So they're circulating the building, identifying and going into the bathrooms. It's typically a male and female staff member, so they're circulating, as well as security. From an administrative standpoint, when there's large groups of individuals who are loitering, we actually do an all-call and all of the administration comes down. And then what we do is we try to flush all the individuals out and actually take them separately to their respective grade levels so that we can deal with the individuals. You never really want to deal with a group of kids because it's never going to end up well. So what we've decided to do is try to isolate the individuals, figure out who is in the bathroom, who is always in there, and then we're working with their parents and working with their students. Sometimes there's disciplinary action associated with it.
So since doing that, I know it probably hasn't been long, so you've only been here for 5 months, but knowing that there is the issue of loitering, I mean, something if we're talking about surveys, something that would be great is maybe at the end of the year, maybe ask the kids, do you feel safer going to the bathroom with the loitering, with things that are going on? Because then you can see if what you're doing is actually making a difference and kids are able to use the bathroom, safely.
We meet regularly as an administrative team to discuss these issues. What I could say, and I'll say this with a lot of confidence, that I think we haven't been able to completely eliminate all of the loitering, but what my administrative team has reported to me is that the respect that the kids are having when we're trying to ask them to move on has definitely gotten better.
So question about the staff restroom access, all of that text is crossed out. What are we thinking there again, or is that a separate policy that would address that?
Yeah, the reason that particular part is crossed out is because of the fact that there's staff restrooms in this particular policy. What the focus is on students.
Yeah, at this point, I am in agreement with Mr. Wers. I think we need to go back and flesh out some more specifics. And even though we're talking about the high school right now, we need to think about implications at the middle school level and elementary as well. And I'm not sure that this is the right policy for that.
I also wanted to very quickly pick up on a thread of something that Mr. Wers had mentioned earlier about the idea of eventually looking at having more bathrooms in the school that were true single-user facilities as a way to deal with some of those behaviors that we're seeing in these large gang bathrooms, which, I mean, we're seeing those in schools across the United States, and which deals with allowing people to use a bathroom without any fears of privacy whatsoever, regardless of whether that person be trans, regardless of whether that person be the gender that they were assigned at birth, regardless of whether that person is faculty or student. So what I'm trying to figure out here and measure is that what we're looking at here, is this a stopgap, where eventually we are looking at to potentially convert those bathrooms, or is what we're looking at to be the permanent policy?
Like your question is, would the policy be what it is right now, and then as we develop potentially different facilities, the policy would change?
Or even is there interest, a plan to look at the development of a different type of facility for the school building? I mean, I can recall going to the bathrooms here at Penrith back when our principal had removed all the stall doors in the bathrooms, which was a rather unique and entertaining experience. But just within that, the discomfort that one experienced even within those bathrooms. I remember people throwing things into a stall if they thought that somebody was in that stall when I was in high school. There's always been misbehavior in bathrooms. There always will be. Is what we're looking at something that can allow everyone, in all circumstances, to feel like they have full privacy? Or is what we are looking to solely work within the existing infrastructure that we have? I just am looking at clarity.
I think that's the direction we ultimately have to go in.
It becomes a financial one too, because it's not, we've gotten quotes before, we looked at this last year, I think, and it's not inexpensive. And it would open up these gang bathrooms to maybe 5 or 6 single-use stalls, similar to what you might see in an airport. And that is an option, but it's not something that's a quick fix, and it's certainly going to affect the budget. So for what we have, I think we have to go forward with what we have, assuming it's going to stay that way for a little while.
I think it's a good question, and so that we can, even if it's like, how do we get to work right now? Because there have been some things that Mr. Keddy and them have come back with about different locks they can put on the single users, even though there's still multiple toilets in the single users, but different things to kind of help students remember to lock that door behind them, that are not too expensive. And then there's the transitioning bathrooms as we go. So is it a matter of there's a bathroom that needs updating regardless? Well, how about we think of making that a true single user type bathroom versus converting other multi-users into it? I think it would be nice to hear a plan, and then we would obviously have to go through all the normal process. But I feel like, you know, my take on it is, I feel like the Boyertown case is pretty clear that it's not so much the options that you need as it is you can't discriminate. And so with sex-based and gender-based and single user, I have concerns that that still limits what transgender students are allowed to do and violates their constitutional rights to privacy, not just their right to privacy in a public bathroom, but their right to avoid disclosing information on personal matters. I mean, that's the Supreme Court's interpretation on the 14th Amendment. And so where, as someone who was sitting on the outside for the past few years, I feel like there's been opportunities lost within our district that when we're presented with something that's new, something that's different, we can help our students walk through it with understanding, with lack of judgment, and work together to find solutions. And not play into the initial fear that most people feel when something that's not familiar to them is placed in front of them. And public schools are paramount to maintaining our democracy, not just from the element of you get an education no matter what your socioeconomic status is or no matter, you know, where you live, but also from the element that your rights aren't valuable if they come at the expense of other people's rights. And fighting for your rights should be fighting for equality for all, not just for yourself. So in public schools, part of what you get is an exposure outside of what you might have only seen in your family. And that allows our democracy to continue to work because it teaches that empathy. So I have concerns about any sex-based bathrooms, whether it's the majority or just one. I'd like to follow up with the solicitor with some questions around that, but I am just one person, and the beauty of a board with diversity of thought is that one person has no more power than the others.
Leah, the solicitor did tell us last week he felt we were well protected if we had 3 options. He shared that with us last week.
Well, if our opinion, maybe not, but we should probably discuss this and get the consensus of the board and figure out where we're going to go next.
So for the next policy meeting, what are we, I mean, it looks like we have to clean up some things, maybe add in text around, that maybe just clarifies a little bit more what we were talking about.
And discuss because of kind of where we had the meeting and to here, I feel we have to kind of go back to the drawing board basically because of maybe the misunderstanding, I don't know, of where we were and then to this meeting.
And Ernest also wasn't there. I think we need to go back to the drawing board with our solicitor, with Ernest, and recap what happened last week.
So in an exec session?
At least to frame it,
We'll
to
talk.
frame what, yeah.
I don't know, maybe we don't need, sorry. We'll discuss it and we'll determine which is the most efficient way of getting things done. So, it might be an executive session.
I wanted to speak though also just on the legal precedent because it was brought up in the slideshow as well as from some board members. And I agree that one's comfort level should not rule another's comfort level, and that's the challenge that we're faced with. I like what you said about looking into the plan. I agree, like looking into more single users, because to be honest, when we originally went to a sex-based bathroom policy, we were under the impression, we were given a map, we were under the impression that we had 5 single-user bathrooms. And it actually wasn't until, it wasn't until Ricky and I went to the restroom, we had break in one of our board meetings. We went out and saw a sign that said single user. We opened the door and it's a multi-user. So we did not go on a tour to see where the actual single user bathrooms were. So that was when we were faced with that as well and realized that there is, it's a little bit more difficult. It's not an actual single user. It was decided to be single user because there's a lock behind the door so you can lock it after you go in. So I would be for that. But for where the law stands and the Boyertown case is the heavy, I know there's some disagreement and some interpretation of that case because specifically in that case, the court did say we need not decide that very different issue here, specifically from the part where it says the school district contends that barring transgender students from using privacy facilities that align with their gender identity would itself constitute discrimination under a sex stereotyping theory in violation of Title IX. So they specifically stated in that case that they will not decide that very different issue here. When you go to Title IX, specifically to Section 34 CRF 106.33, it specifically states that a recipient may provide separate toilet, locker room, and shower facilities on the basis of sex, but such facilities provided for students of one sex shall be comparable to such facilities provided for students of the other sex. So again, you cannot discriminate, religion, race, so many other things, but you can discriminate based upon locker room, shower facilities, and separate toilet. Also, actual Pennsylvania state law, 24 PS Section 7 through 740 states, and this has yet to be changed, and it's been so long ago that they use the words such as water closets or outhouses shall be suitably constructed for and used separately by the sexes. When any water closets or outhouses are outside and detached from the school building, the entrance thereto shall be properly screened, and they shall, unless constructed at a remote distance from each other, have separate means of access thereto, and if possible, for not less than 25 feet from such water closets. But again, by law, you may discriminate based upon sex only specifically toward bathrooms, locker rooms, and those things. So if we're going with the legal precedents, I know it has the letter from Dr. Munin that also mentions the Bostock case. Well, in the Bostock case, the Supreme Court, they specifically said in that case, we do not purport to address bathrooms, locker rooms, or anything else of that kind. They were only dealing with the employment law and Title IX, and when mentioned Title IX, it would be more so on the basis of an example such as discriminating based upon sex for like an algebra class and, discriminating that way. But they specifically stated that they're not addressing bathrooms, locker rooms, or anything else of that kind. So for legal precedent, there isn't a standing, and the Boyertown case is still up for interpretation. The circuits are split. The 4th and 7th decided one way, the 11th decided one way, the 3rd, they allowed Boyertown to stay with their policy, but they did not make a decision stating specifically that you were not allowed to have sex-based bathrooms.
Well, while I understand what you're saying, none of the 9 of us are actually attorneys, and we should be taking what our attorney presents to us or advises us on as legal. So while any of us can read and interpret any of these school codes, none of the 9 of us are lawyers enough to say that based on the information that's on these is sound legal advice. So I would take what Ernest has worked on in conjunction with the attorney as, I mean, as long as he's advising us on the policy in a certain way, that's how I would take it. Because again, none of us are attorneys to be reading any of this information and interpreting it as legal.
Sure, but there are other districts such as Eastern Lanco that has a sex-based bathroom policy since 2019, who also have a different solicitor. Southside Area School District in Pittsburgh has a sex-based bathroom. Redline, that was mentioned tonight, as well as Hempfield. So again, as I understand what you're saying, that is the.
But just because they have policies that are still under Doe versus Boyertown that are still illegal, doesn't mean that we can't. It does. It's 3rd District Court. If we were in court under 3rd District.
They are in 3rd Circuit.
Not illegal. If we were taken to court under 3rd District, we would lose the court case based on Doe versus Boyertown.
Well, first of all, the judges have changed that. It's not necessarily true.
No, 100% that's true. We just found that out that was
true.
true.
Did not have a policy. They didn't have a policy in place.
They did have a policy in place.
No, they did not have a policy in place. They had open bathrooms, so they had an open bathroom policy. And the court said, well, that is a policy you had, so these kids can still use. We have a policy, so it could end very
Hence,
differently.
Ash can hardly be faulted for being proactive in adopting a policy that avoids the issues that may otherwise have occurred.
They didn't have a
So
policy.
they did have a policy.
Their
And
policy
their
was
policy
open.
is what
Their
took them to
policy was
court,
open.
and they lost. And the opinion in the court case for Doe versus Boyertown says that transgender students cannot be forced into single-use bathrooms.
Correct, their
So,
policy allowed for that.
Again,
So our policy-
as 9 board members, we should not be interpreting the law, and we should be allowing our solicitor, who we
Well,
pay
great,
money.
he said let's do 3 bathrooms, then let's.
Again,
go with that.
I'm not disagreeing with that.
Okay.
I'm just saying, to be quoting legal references should be left up to our solicitor, and let him advise Ernest to be able to adequately write the policy. I mean, that's more my point. Because, I mean, I could find court cases all day and quote them, but it doesn't necessarily set me up to be
These
an
are the ones that
attorney.
were put on here as well, so that's why I'm speaking to them too.
I'd also like to add though, because a policy exists at the district, does not mean that's what their solicitor recommended. So I don't know if we can go that the legality of it, just because it's an existing policy, means it's any.
Sure, but again, I feel like the reasoning then should be stated, which not everyone stated, but if you're basing it based off of legal precedent, then be specific with that. And with how some of the words, and there are interpretations from other solicitors as well, that, it's like the saying, that if you get a bunch of lawyers in a room, they're gonna differ on the interpretation sometimes as well. So that's where you should also be reading it yourselves. You're going to be making a very big decision, and it shouldn't just be in the hands of one person giving advice. You should also be reading into it, and you should be looking at the cases that are being cited.
I believe we are. Okay, so then the next step would be we come back with the 3-option policy.
Let's see if we can get some consensus. Let's see if we can get some consensus and which way to go. And I'd like to present one going forward. Yeah, so we'll talk about that.
I'm not sure what you mean, the
Well,
consensus how.
Of what I haven't heard from everybody, I don't know how they're feeling. We can't vote here, obviously, but we can make a decision outside of the meeting which way to go forward and come back with a revised policy. Does that make any sense? Or?
It does. I would like to have a meeting with our solicitor though,
That's fine.
because I still have some questions.
Sure.
I feel like sometimes we hear something and then I hear other things when we all get together. So if we could have another meeting.
Fine with me.
Okay, so the plan is to set up another meeting with the solicitor, see what adjustments want to be made for the policy, and bring it back again for first read. Alright, so that was our first read. I forgot that we still have second reads after this, but this shouldn't take too long.
Mr. McCullough, if you could pull up policy. Sorry, yeah, be fast. So this is content regarding the first read. There's already been a first reading of this particular policy, and I know one of the concerns related to educational instability and what that means. There was language added to after that first reading regarding educational instability, and so I'll just you could focus on that. Thank you. A student who's experienced one or more changes in school enrollment during a single school year to any of the following, their list conditions: homelessness, an adjudication of dependency, delinquency, part of a court-ordered service. Student who has experienced foster care may also qualify, and so on and so forth. That was the only concern regarding this particular policy. Is there any other discussion from the board?
I'm just going to real quickly remind the board, because it's been a while since we looked at this. This was when we were just making sure we were inserting the definition of education instability in all the PSBA updated policies. Thank you. Okay. All right, so next one. Are there any questions or comments on that policy? Okay. All right. Next is transportation.
Thank you. This is policy 810. During the first reading, there was no substantive discussion about any concerns regarding policy 810.
No. So yeah, this one had no changes from the last meeting.
Right, no language changes from the last one.
Any questions or comments? All right, thank you. Are we doing public comment at the end of committee meetings also?
Leah, can I ask one question?
Yeah, sure.
It's unrelated to bathroom. On the policy update plan,
Yeah.
when you laid out what policies we're looking at,
Yeah.
and this might have changed, but in the past, there would either be a PBSA recommendation for a change or consensus of the board to look at something that wasn't necessarily, didn't have a revision recommended, but the board wanted to look at it. So is that the case still, or has that
That's
changed?
still in there. It's on there.
What do you mean?
It's the
on there?
second column,
It's in
where
the
it's either
spreadsheet.
PSBA or board initiated.
Oh, no, I get the board initiated. I guess my question is that initiated with consensus of the board? Anyone on the board can just say, can we put this up in policy? It used to be consensus of the board.
Close. Set by board.
Right.
Say it
So this
again?
is- Thank you. Go ahead, Ron, I'm sorry.
It's more of a board leadership thing.
Okay.
But, everyone's welcome
Right.
to have input.
Okay.
If you had
She's not
one,
taking a vote.
yes, if you have one you'd like to add for review soon, let me know. We can-
No, I don't. I was just curious because it's, I think, different than we normally did, but maybe not.
Okay, so we have public comment. I need my glasses. First up is Richard Burns.
Can you hear me? Richard Burns, Hilltown Township. I wanted to comment on the bathroom policy. When you allow boys to use the girls' bathrooms, you're affirming transgender dysphoria. You're telling the gender dysphoric kids that their self-diagnosis is correct, and you're thereby aiding and abetting potential harmful care. Why is it harmful? Because the current therapy for trans dysphoric kids is massively in question. As I said in the school board meeting in March, there's no medical consensus about the care. And there's a lot of controversy. By affirming the kids, affirmation or social affirmation as they call it, is the first step in putting a kid on the highway to transgender care. So the school teacher who has a student come to them and says, my name is Sally, but I think I'm a boy, and the teacher immediately affirms the child, instead of challenging the child and saying, you know, you might be confused, let's get your parents to talk about this. And no, Sally, you're not a boy, you're a little girl. But we'll talk about this later. That's what much of the medical community in the U.S. and throughout the world is saying, that we should not immediately affirm these kids. We should put them through a wait-and-see period with appropriate psychiatric care and monitoring, with the participation of the parents by all means. Now, as school board, do you really want to send kids down that road? So if you, to re-emphasize, when you designate a bathroom for girls and you allow boys to go in it, you're affirming to that boy that his gender dysphoria is correct. So affirmation is the first step. You're putting him on the road for transgender care, which includes, you know, all the hormones, the cross-gender hormones, the puberty blockers, and the mutilating surgeries that occur for many kids. So do you really want to put the kids on that path? And Mr. Johnson, I agree with you 100% that I'm 100% for these children who are transgender, transdysphoric, and need proper care. But as a school system and a school administrators and personnel have absolutely no place in initiating transgender care for transdysphoric kids. That's the realm of the parents and the physicians or psychiatrists or counselors that they choose.
Thank you, Dr. Burns. You're over your 3 minutes.
Okay, thank you. And just one other thing. The term you use of assigned at birth is a misnomer. There's no one assigns sex or gender to a baby when it's born. I participated in deliveries of babies in my training, and I never heard a doctor or a nurse assign a gender to a kid. That assignment took place at the time of conception, when the chromosomes aligned. And for those of us who believe in God, I think he might have had something to do with it too. Thank you.
Thank you. Next up is Shannon Harris.
So I definitely agree that all of you should take a very close look at the legal precedent set, read the actual lawsuits. I have right here, which is the appeal for the Boyertown case, and it says, accordingly, the court finds that the plaintiffs have not established that they would be irreparably harmed. The whole appeal case is about whether or not the case had standing. So you guys are wrong. That is not what Boyertown is about. It is not about the bathroom policy. You really have to get your guys' act together. I wholeheartedly believe we definitely need the solicitor in the next policy meeting, because you need advisement. You all need advisement to be able to understand this. I'm thoroughly confused about what's going on in Penridge. Thank you for saying that the single-use bathrooms have a lock on it, but they're multi-use. So, because I was very confused as to how a person was supposed to get privacy, so I appreciate you clarifying that. Okay, so basically, again, gender dysphoria, it's a mental illness. Why are we not talking about mental illness here? That's what it is. You need to deal with the mental illness in these children. It's important. It's definitely important. You said in one of your definitions, gender identified is an internal sense. It's not reality, it's their sense of what they believe. Okay, so again, you all are not doctors, you're not psychologists, psychiatrists. If someone says that they're trans, what are you guys doing? I want to know what you guys are doing, as a district with your policies to address the mental illness, gender dysphoria. Does a kid come to you? What happens? Do you talk to their parents? Like, you should be focusing on a policy on that if you don't have one in place. I don't know what the procedures are. There's obviously the administrative regulations that go into it. But this is what you need to be focusing on, not creating a bathroom policy right now. It's just akin to me like an alcoholic. You know, if someone's an alcoholic or a drug addict, we don't allow drugs and alcohol in Penn Ridge, do we? No. So why are you affirming them by saying, oh, well, you can use every bathroom you want? We need to protect women's rights. You have 0.1% of the population, and then you've got 50% are women, and women are feeling threatened, so you need to protect them as well. I understand it's a difficult situation, but this policy that you guys presented, you crossed out everything, which brings me to another point. So this was adopted on May 10th of 2023. Now, your solicitor went over it then, right? Your solicitor is still your current solicitor now, is that correct? So what law has changed since May 10th, 2023 to now to make you say that this policy is incorrect? Where's the legal, where is the legal on this? Get your solicitor in here. You're saying that he's now saying that this policy that is in place is incorrect. On what basis? I want to see it.
Thank you, Ms. Harris.
Just one more thing, Mr. Wers. 2 months ago, you asked families to come back in person into the school district because I guess you have families who are doing online school, and obviously we want money back into the district. If you really think that this is going to bring people back into the district, I'm telling you, you are going to drive people out. You had your own board member saying that she was going to pull her daughter out. You need to rethink this.
Thank you. Next is Kim Bedelia.
Kim Bedelia, Percy Borough. I respectfully request that this board remove Leah Foster Rash from her assignment as policy chair, especially given her comments tonight on legality. In addition, she should not be permitted to have any input or access to internal deliberations regarding board policies mentioned in the civil rights complaint filed against Penn Ridge. Further, she should not have any input or access to internal deliberations regarding the RFP for board solicitor, as said solicitor is responsible for providing legal advice to the board regarding policies. It is my understanding that she has recused herself from discussions regarding the civil rights complaint. If that's not true, please let me know. My reasons for requesting these measures are due to Leah Foster Rash's many conflicts of interest as follows. She was the only individual Democratic school board candidate to receive a donation of $500 from Adrian King, the same Adrian King who leads the Pair Up Society, a complainant in the civil rights complaint. Leah Foster Rash's husband is the treasurer of the Pair Up Society, bringing that civil rights complaint. The civil rights complaint seeks to force Penn Ridge to change many current board policies, including the sex-based bathroom and locker room policy, the sex-based sports policy, the advocacy policy, and the resources policy. The civil rights complaint was filed a mere 10 days after Leah Foster Rash was elected to the board. That means she knew during the entire election that this was going to be filed, and she failed to mention anything about it during her campaign. She kept the information secret. Leah Foster Rash's sister, who we saw tonight, Laura Foster and Adrian King, are co-founders of Ridge Network, an organization currently pressuring the board to change the very policies outlined in the civil rights complaint. And you heard Laura Foster right here tonight threaten the OCR on the board. It is clear that Leah Foster Rash, along with her husband, her sister, and her campaign donors, are conspiring together to upend the policies passed by the prior board. They are using the civil rights complaint, the RFP to change solicitor, and her policy board position to that end. As such, any decisions the board makes about the civil rights complaint, the solicitor, the board policy listed in the civil rights complaint will be tainted by Leah Foster Rash's involvement. Policy 005 says the board president alone can assign committee chairs. Ron, you ran on a campaign of transparency and board unity. Yet the wife and sister of the people attacking and suing this district was placed in charge of policy. This is an ethics violation at the very least. It is creating an atmosphere of distrust within this community and within this board, no doubt. You, Ron, as board president, you can restore integrity to the board by making this right, by making this change and reassigning the policy chair position. Thank you.
Thank you. Next we have Deborah Strauss.
Good evening, everyone. Deborah Strauss, I'm from Percy. I am a 1984 alum from Penridge High School, and I have two biological daughters who also graduated from Penridge High School. I have a stepdaughter who graduated from Penridge High School. I have a stepson who chose not to be at Penridge High School because he felt singled out by the people who are prejudiced and discriminating against the kids who are LGBT. I have two grandchildren, two granddaughters who are also currently in Penridge High School, and I fear for them as they continue in their educational careers. I currently am the president of Percy Pride, and I support all of our students, and I especially support our most vulnerable students. And I can speak to the mental health issues. I'm a licensed clinical social worker. I'm a therapist, and I work with individuals who are LGBT, and I've seen what happens when they aren't supported. I see the levels of depression when they are not supported. I've seen people become suicidal when they're not supported. We need to worry about those kids. In 1984, the bathrooms were not a safe place to be. Everybody was smoking in the bathrooms. I mean, they've made songs about it, right? When my daughters graduated, the bathrooms were not a safe place to be. None of this has to do with transgender students. The transgender students are the people who are most at risk when they go into the bathroom. This is not an issue about a bathroom. This is an issue about privacy. Those kids need to have the ability to come to school and be who they are and not have to worry about when they have to go to the bathroom. Which room am I supposed to go in? Some of them don't want to say that they are trans, and we're not going to know it, and they're going to just need to go to the bathroom. Some of those kids don't want to stand up and say it. I've heard the number six kids. It's not 6 kids. We don't know how many kids it is. I've chosen to be out and to talk about who I am as a way of supporting those who don't want to or can't stand up for themselves. I thank you very much for the time.
Thank you. Next is Lauren Peretti.
Hi, good evening. I'm Lauren Peretti. I'm from Percy Borough.
The other mic.
Oh, thank you. It doesn't sound like the mic's on. Still Lauren Peretti, still from Percy Borough. And for the past 25 years, I've worked in homeless services, and in my field, the basic legal principle that says that discrimination on the basis of gender identity is illegal means that shelters that I work with across the country serve people based on their gender identity, without regard to anatomy, without regard to what it says on their birth certificate. For years, I've seen shelters all across the country serve trans women in women's shelters, serve trans men in men's shelters. All around the nation, every night, trans women are using bathrooms alongside cisgendered women in shelters, in airports, in sports stadiums, in restaurants that we all patronize. And they're doing this without hurting anyone and with little fanfare. It hasn't led to increased drug sales. It hasn't led to an epidemic of men, people who identify as men, randomly deciding on any given day, today I want to be a woman and today I want to go to a women's shelter. That's not the policy in shelters. It's not the policy that's being discussed tonight. When people do things that are illegal or are disallowed under the policy in homeless services, as you would in the school, we deal with that as we would with any other violation. I think we all know about the data of how vulnerable trans students are, and offering bathroom choices and allowing students to make the choice that works best for them seems like the least we can do to help vulnerable students. Being a trans teen is hard enough. Please just let the students choose which bathroom is safe and right for them. Thanks for your time and for your service on the board.
Thank you. Next is Maggie Connolly.
Hello, good evening. Hi, my name is Maggie Connolly. I'm in Percy Borough. I had just a few thoughts while y'all were having your discussion about bathroom policy. First, it was mentioned that teachers use different bathrooms. I was wondering if that was going to be like required that they use different bathrooms somewhere, so that Mr. Jones isn't following my 5-year-old into bathrooms. That'd be great. And I know it was said that you definitely need more discussion on this, but I think from a parent's perspective, it's really important to know like what steps will have to take place before a child can use the opposite gendered bathroom. So is it gonna be, my name's Jeff and I'm a dude, I feel like using the girls' bathroom, or are they gonna have to do services? Or have it documented in some way? I know there's some concern about privacy, but I think if Jeff is going into the ladies' room, that's kind of out of the bag. Also, there's been a lot of talk about the legalese of it and the legislation and what's legal and not legal. I think it's a great idea to talk to the lawyer about it again. When you do, maybe talk with him about what sort of defense you could have if, say, there is a Loudoun County type incident here, because that you might want to know ahead of time. Also, if any board members who vote in favor of desegregating the bathrooms would be willing to put themselves up personally as personally liable in case anything happens to a girl in a bathroom, that'd be great. And if not, then maybe start thinking now about why you're not willing to put your wallet on the line, but you're willing to put our daughter's dignity on the line. Finally, I noticed during the course of the discussion that there's been a lot of talk about boys going into girls' bathrooms. Not a lot of talk about girls going into boys' bathrooms and that being a risk. I wonder if that's because there's a difference between boys and girls.
Thank you. Next is Ross McLennan.
Ross McLennan, Hilltown. Ernest? Welcome to Penridge, sir. Excellent job tonight. Really enjoyed a lot of what you had to say. The rest of you, thank you very much. I think comments all around are really pointing into a direction
that I think we all can be happy with at the end of the day, at least I hope so. You know, I thought about this one, walk a mile in my shoes, you know. I think I'd really struggle in a lot of cases to put myself in the shoes of these young students. And I just want to be able to protect them. So let's do a good job here. I won't say your name, but it came up about surveys. So the PACE survey, I sent you an email. Look at that. In 21, a lot of these questions you asked about were answered. They weren't answered last time around because we didn't get good participation. And we didn't get good participation because there was a 5-4 vote against the PACE survey. So it ended up, you have to opt in. I want us to work the PACE survey for next year so that it is the way it was done in 21 when we got the answers you're looking for, sir. Oh, great job with the new female security and policing, the loitering. I remember that in school, and I graduated in 1974, so you can imagine what we were doing in 1974, so good luck with the policing. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Last we have Patty Lowry.
Hi, good evening. I'm Patty Lowry. I am a Percy resident. I have 5 children in the borough. Only two of my children will not go through Penridge because of the meeting that we've had tonight. I have 2 graduates and I have a daughter who's a junior here. She has anxiety. She was in the bathroom last year when a gender fluid person came into the bathroom. And she told me, she called me from the stall, was horrified, and she told me this person changes his mind or her mind every day. And they have no control. The principals know, the teachers know, and it made her extremely uncomfortable, which in turn makes me very uncomfortable. You will bankrupt this school district by all the parents who will go cyber. And I'm looking at one person on this stage tonight because she is here strictly for her own agenda. I cannot even believe the things that I heard about her family involvement. I am so disappointed that this board is allowing her to hijack this policy that seems like all of a sudden you all showed up here tonight, all of you, even the people that she thought were on her team, and were like, this isn't what we discussed last week, Leah. Whoa, were you all as surprised? Because it showed, and everybody saw it. Now you all have a job to do. You helped her get on here, you darn well better keep her in check. Or she is going to be the reason why you lose students. You guys came here tonight saying there was going to be 3 options, and believe me, my kids have told me that gender-neutral, single-use bathroom, everybody uses it. They don't care if you're transgender or not. They're like, I got to take a poop, I want privacy. I'm going to go in that bathroom. Nobody's looking at the kids going in there and saying, oh, they're only going in there because they're transgender. No, they don't give a crap. But they don't want to have a boy or a girl or whatever, somebody outside who's gender fluid, standing in the bathroom while they're going to the bathroom. It's not rocket science. So I think most of you guys up here are pretty reasonable, and you're okay with having a girl's room, a boy's room, and a middle-of-the-road room. That doesn't seem like too much to ask. The only person that says it's too much to ask is the person who wants to cram her agenda down our throats. Penridge School District and the voters are watching. I hope you take note.
Thank you. That's the end of public comment.
We're gonna take a 5-minute break.
Okay.
Number of reasons. We'll be right back. facilities now.
Good
luck. Oh, good luck, thank you. Bob, we'll take over from here. Just bear with me, kind of a little confusion.
Do you want me to read the 9031 or no?
I think we do that.
Do we have any else?
And since there's no public comments for the whole 3 meetings.
So we do have
No, we'll have one at the end.
at the one, okay?
So you don't.
Okay, so according to policy 903, we've gone through that, so we're going to move forward. We're looking at a site logic presentation. Mr. Kelly?
So we have Melissa Colstock from Site Logic here to talk about a resolution regarding grant funding.
Good evening, everybody. My name is Melissa Colstock, and I'm the Director of Deliverables for SiteLogic. I'm joined with Bob Strickland, who is our Senior Business Consultant. Just to provide a little bit of context for those of you who I have not formally met as the district's building and facilities partner, we will occasionally find grant opportunities for the district at the state and federal level. So that's what we are discussing here tonight. And the public funding opportunity that is known as Act 34 is a public school facility grant program. And it is administered through the Department of Community and Economic Development. It is dedicated towards funding facility maintenance projects. And these grant awards range anywhere from $500,000 to $5 million. And the application period is currently open. It opened March 1st. It closes May 31st. And awards for this grant are slated for fall of 2024. They haven't picked a day or month yet. So applications can vary, but traditionally a district can submit an application with a single facility with multiple improvement categories or multiple facilities with one single improvement. So with the adoption of this resolution, this district can now move forward with your grant application, and SiteLogic can support you in that effort. And I will just pause for questions.
What specifics do we need to put into this grant? Is it a big application, or how do you?
It is not a complicated application. We have provided support to the district in the past with very similar grants. You haven't been awarded them, you might remember, but it's through the DCED. So it's just basically an online form. We are writing a narrative around the grant that you would submit on. We are recommending to the district that you select a single facility improvement measure that can be applied to many of your facilities. That way the impact for your students and staff is seen across the district instead of concentrated in a single building. And the different types of eligible categories that you can apply for are things like roof repairs and replacement, energy projects, HVAC upgrades, plumbing systems, health and safety upgrades. I won't go through all of them, but there are 11 eligible categories that you can apply for. And I can provide the guidelines electronically to Mr. Harper, Mr. Daubert, and they can share it out with the committee if they'd like.
Sounds good.
Okay.
Melissa, I understand that these projects need to be something that's already far along in development, for lack of a better term, or scoped out.
Yes. Penridge is unique in that you are engaged in a facility study, which is a requirement of the grant. And what this allows you to do in terms of your application is show that you have put forth an effort in assessing your facilities, prioritizing your need, and then identifying an appropriate category with which you could submit your application.
Did you do that for LED lighting across the district, or is that energy saving?
Yes. In fact, that is one of the opportunities that we would make a recommendation to this district. One of the advantages of that is LED lighting is great. It's energy savings. But right now it's not, it's like a nice to have right now instead of a need to have. So if you have grant monies that help support and implement that facility improvement measure, you can start to put it in place.
Do we have any ideas, Sean or Kelly, about what we would apply for?
I think the LED is one of the ones that make the most sense. It's already been priced, and it is an impact district-wide. Not only would it enhance our facilities, but would also reduce our energy consumption and cost. So I think that would be an easy win if that was one of the projects that we could identify. There's other ones, we're still working through the process of prioritization for the district for capital projects, but this would certainly be an easy one and a big win for the district if we went with LED lighting.
And I think that's a project that, say, Logic already has developed and designed and costed out and has all the information that's needed to submit for the grant. Other projects would take that time to do that, and it's just not enough. You know, this is a very short time frame to get this grant in. So having a project that's already developed, like SiteLogic has this project and costed out, is probably the best way to go.
Yeah,
Is
and
that
a
fair?
scope, yeah, exactly, Mr. Schauer. And, excuse me, a scope like LED lighting is also scalable, right? So you might apply for a grant district-wide, but you might only get a portion of that awarded. Well, even a small portion of that still can be impactful towards a scope like LED lighting, and you would see that immediately.
How do you win these grants? What's the key?
Well, it is a very competitive process. This is the first year that it's being offered, so a lot of school districts will be kind of chomping at the bit to go after this. However, this will be offered annually or as long as the program is funded. So our recommendation to the district is we will keep applying for this grant as often as it's offered.
Any other questions? Hearing none. Great presentation. Thank you very much. We appreciate
Have a good
your time.
evening.
Sean, we have obsolete items for review. A, Technology Department.
Thanks, Mr. Cormack. Just to finish up on that, what we'll do is put together the draft resolution that Melissa gave us and work with Melissa to put that in the right format and get the language correct. And we'll bring it back to the board at the voting meeting because that board has to put the resolution in place as part of the grant application.
Okay, so
we need to approve that.
Thank you, Sean.
That
Okay,
draft
great.
resolution.
Good clarification.
Okay, so what we have for obsolete items this month under letter A is the technology department, the April recycling lot, and all those items on that list will go to technology recycling. Letter B, we have Guth Elementary School. We have 4 different documents of weeding from their library, and each of the particular books has the reason from the current school board policy as to why those books are being weeded. And then the last obsolete item list we have this month is letter C, which is high school athletic uniforms. And we have a number of old uniforms that have been around quite some time. And really, our athletic department is trying to clean up and clean out a lot of old stuff that's just been not used and sitting around. These athletic teams get a new uniform every 4 years. There's a cycle. And if you look at the list, some of these say 4 old or 3 old or 2 old. That means that this uniform that's 4 old means that it's 4 times removed 4 times in the cycle. So they just need to go away and get out of our storage room. So there's just a lot of cleanup there, and all that stuff will go.
Thank you.
Yep.
Any questions for Sean on those 3 items?
Not a question, but just an idea, and I'm not encouraging them to hold on to these longer than they want to. But some parents or something might want them to make something for their kids or something. Crafts is what I'm thinking, but can we offer them to the public, I guess, or we just throw them out?
Well,
Which
Or would that make it more work? The uniforms.
uniforms?
And so it's not worth it, we will not do it. All right, never mind. If we're just looking for the space, then just let it go.
We just need to get rid of this stuff.
Yep, no problem.
Don't they go up for bid, right, if you try to sell it, like you do in the auctions?
Okay, we're all right there?
Yeah.
Our next Facilities Committee meeting is scheduled for May 2nd, 2024.
Okay, moving right along to, is there any public comment on the end of the meeting?
Ross.
I can't go.
It's just you.
Ross, did you sign up?
Ross, do you have any public comment?
Okay, then we'll move right on to facilities. To finance, please. First thing on the agenda tonight is the Upper Bucks County Technical School. Ferrer, you have a presentation. Was that all set up? Good.
Hello everyone, thanks for having us back. Just as a clarification, last Thursday our JLC and SiteLogic saw the bids that came in for the roof project. They did come in a little bit higher, which is why we're here tonight. They came in a little higher, but the budget amount of 11.9 will stay the same. We're going to use existing funds. At this point, consensus of the JLC to use existing funds in this budget year to amend our motion. Because the motion the JLC took in March was to approve the budget, but contingent on not exceeding the $1.498 million for the roof. Unfortunately, the bids came in a little higher than anticipated, to the tune of $89,000. But certainly that's not at the magnitude where we would need to ask money from any of the three schools. So we're going to use existing funds. So 11.9 is basically staying the same. It's the JLC's intent to use existing funding to take care of that balance of the roof project and get the base bid plus the three alternates that were bid all done and completed this summer.
Do we have questions or other? You gave a whole presentation. I didn't see it.
Correct.
It's the same. That's the only. That's the same.
Absolutely.
Okay, I didn't see it. So the question I have is expenditures. On one slide is 11.96 million. And your revenue is 11.6. Where do you?
Correct.
That's the way the funding is set up now.
Yeah. So the way that was done was to illustrate the gap between the two, which would be the money, which is the $300,000 that the three districts would be.
And where is that coming from?
The three schools.
The 318.
Correct.
The deficit. Who's making that up?
The three school districts.
Okay, so is this higher than what was budgeted for us, shown? How's that?
Is that 318 part of the district's tuition that's listed in here?
Yeah, the 318 was going, again, when they did the initial presentation, just for illustration, so that the district could see what the funding is presently, and then what it would take to balance the budget for 24-25.
So we would see an increase of our percentage of the 318?
Yes. And I didn't bring that number with me tonight. It was the same, well, in that presentation, I'm sorry, if that slide is still valid. And
So but you're adding a lot of positions, right? About 500,000 in new positions?
No, we weren't adding. There was one discrepancy that was already in the budget, just wasn't filled.
Right. Was there only one or
The
were
only
there two?
position that was being added was the law enforcement.
And what about
I thought there was law enforcement, an instructional coach, which you said was budgeted last year.
Correct.
And then there was an assistant director of student services.
A third administrator, correct.
Right. And they weren't hired last year?
Correct. We had, when I started 10 years ago, we had 658 students with 4 administrators that worked with students. In 2019, we went from 4 to 3. The third administrator resigned, saying that it was not possible to run the school with 3 administrators. During the transition, I finished the year off by myself, primarily working with the students, and currently we have 2 administrators that work with students. So the push in the budget is to bring that back up to 3, with our enrollment close to being 915 and but possibly up higher next year.
How long have you been without the third supervisor?
Since 2000, I think February of 2021.
So it's been a while.
It's been a while.
You feel it's justified to add that even though you got by last year without having?
I do. The JOC felt that way. One of the board members specifically commented on us adding programs and growing when there was a need for many, many students being on the wait list. And we believe that this would add stability to the team and much needed. Yes, we do.
Should you be adding instructors instead of administrators if you want to get the enrollment? I mean, you're not going to add more people with just administrators.
We do, but when you add instructors, it's programs, and this year we didn't want to put any undue burdens on the district without them being prepared for that. So this year we wanted to, and I'm speaking on behalf of the JOC, and any of the members could speak about that, is we want to get a smart growth plan to make sure that we're able to accommodate the approximately 160 some students that are on the waiting lists.
Yeah. Well, it's been on the waiting list for a while, hasn't there? I mean, I guess we'd like to see that plan as soon as possible, right? We want to grow the school.
Thank you. So do we.
Yeah.
I just want to ask, I know that we had talked about at the meeting, the facilities finance, about the addition of a consultant for bringing in Stacy Gober as a consultant for added help. And I wasn't sure, I don't know if maybe I misunderstood, was it going to be for her to consult or to mentor? Like I missed part of that conversation when we had that discussion. And then would that be in addition to this assistant director of student services? Like bringing her in as in addition to, or is there a way to like bring her in on a basis to like kind of fill that role for right now?
Like, well, let me answer that question for you, because as the VP of the JOC, that move is put forth to give Mike some future support in looking at different situations. We think that he needs a little extra zip to make some things happen. And it's not that he's not competent to do it. You certainly are. We just want to bring a different perspective to how he addresses certain situations. And we thought bringing Stacy in for a short time frame would be beneficial for the school and the school's growth.
So what is the plan for, you need our approval by when?
So we are, just in an effort to be fully transparent, we were asked by Mr. Kaufman and Mr. Cormack just to provide this update for you before this goes in front of our JOC. So our whole intent is just to make sure, just to make sure that you're up to speed on where we are, and if there's any questions that we could bring that back to the entire JOC.
Well, we're obviously struggling with a budget deficit here, so we're trying to be as conservative. And I tend to think you should put people into adding additional students before you put another administrator in. That's just my personal opinion. We have 160 kids who can't get in, and I don't really want to wait a year for a growth plan if we're going to spend more money this year than we did last year. So that's just my opinion. Any other?
I think just from the board standpoint, we've got a major expenditure on infrastructure. It's roof. If you don't have a roof, you don't have a building, you don't have a place to educate students. So we've put a lot of attention looking at the roof, working with SiteLogic to make sure we get that particular situation under control so we don't have any future problems. So that's where a bulk of the dollars go.
Also understand that there's not a lot of leaks up there, too.
From what I've heard, there's a few.
All right, we won't get into that.
No.
Anybody else have any questions or comments?
Yeah,
Move on.
I'm just a little bit confused on your budget deficit. So is there truly a budget deficit? Because you show in the budget, in this document, a deficit of $318,000. But then you're saying that's funded by the districts.
Right.
Is that funded through fund balance?
No, I think the way Mrs. Goldberg did that was just, again, as an illustration to put the 11.6 million you're paying now, or the budget line item for revenue, that it needs to go to 11.9. And that 300,000 she did to show you what we paid now.
Is that the increase from 1 year to the next?
So this present year to 24, 25.
So you're saying the budget is actually balanced?
Yes, it would be. I guess she presented it as if, just to show what it would look like now with the revenue stream that was projected, which shows that shortfall of 300,000. And the only way to do it, our lion's share of revenue was always the three schools' tuition.
Okay, it was confusing to me. And in your list of costs for new positions, are the total cost there net of PSERS reimbursement? Because it seems high.
Believe so, yes.
I guess the only comment I had is it's tough for us to approve something because when you need more funding, you come to the schools, but we have to answer to the taxpayers. And that's why we want to be sure as possible that we're not wasting money. And so that's my concern. Anything else? All right, so we'll discuss, and I guess the next item is to whether we want to bring it to a vote this month, or, and when, you said the JOC approved this budget or did not?
Yes, on March, yeah. Apologize. On March 21st, the JOC approved it, yes.
I misunderstood something you said. Okay. All right, anybody else have any objections? Or any other questions? Okay. Thank you for coming down. Sorry you had to wait so long.
Thank you.
All right. All right, you want to go, Sean, you want to go over the different contracts?
Sure. Thank you, Mr. Wers. Contracts this month, the first two contracts are Arts Quest, the high school proms, May of 26 and May of 27, $5,000 deposit for each of those classes. Letter C is the Lehigh University Junior Prom, April of 26, $2,400 deposit, facility fee, plus a $3,000 services deposit. And then the actual cost will be based on what the kids actually use in services. D is Renaissance Learning. This is for Freckle, Lalo Star Essential Suite for $24.25. Cost is $120,974, and this will be paid for by ESSER's funding. One last year of ESSER's funding to cover this cost. The next contract is Edmonton subscription. This is a subscription for Apex Learning for next year, $5,750. The next contract is Fuel Education, license for $24.25. Cost is as per quote, so there's a cost per student, and then the number of students that use the actual service will drive out the final cost of the contract. But I believe the cost per student is somewhere around $300. And that's cyber learning. I lost my place. Did I do G? I'm on G. Okay, Imagine Learning, blended learning online programs. These are to support English language learners for next year, $10,800, no change in cost. H is Imagine Learning, Penridge Online, $24.25, per unit cost of $300, for an estimated 335 kids. Total estimated cost $100,500. Next is Concord Theatricals. This is the South Middle School musical for March of 2025. Cost is $1,060, and that's student paid. Letter J is a update from Sweet Stevens and Katz, who we use for our special education legal services. They're changing their rates effective July 1st, 2024, and their hourly rates are going up to $200 per hour for routine matters. Currently, it's $170 per hour for attorneys for routine matters, $150 per hour for legal assistance for routine matters. That's currently at $130. And then for the non-routine matters, their rate's going up to $220 per hour. For attorneys, it's currently at $200, and the legal assistance is going up to $150 per hour, and that currently is $130 per hour.
Those are big increases. Obviously, we have no say in that. Currently, when was the last time they raised rates?
I'm not sure. It says that.
Does that spell RFP?
I was just about that.
Yeah.
Say the same thing.
It certainly does. We'll certainly be looking at all rates. I mean, we have the right to look for any legal counsel, and if we do a survey, we'll see. And we'll also look at how qualified they are, but from my understanding is we've been satisfied with them also, but jacking our price up that much is not welcome.
Yeah, I would definitely agree. I'd like to see an RFP issued for that as well.
Okay, we have two more contracts. Letter K is Learn Well Educational Services for a student identified as 2024-14, $57 per hour. And again, students that are educated by Learn Well are students that are in medical facilities. And the final contract is Lenovo Financial Services. This is our leasing agreement for our high school one-to-one laptops for next school year. We are needing to get started in that process. We do that each spring, get started on ordering our one-to-one laptops for the next year, and also our certain teacher laptops that we rotate those through. But anyways, this is for 4 years. The length of time that next year's ninth graders will be in high school. The lease factor is 0.25568. Annual lease payment of $239,766.47.
How does that compare to last year?
I believe the factor is up just a little bit. Just a little bit.
A little bit?
Just a little bit.
From a financial guy, that's not a financial.
A tad.
Tad?
I can go with
I'm
10.
just curious.
Is
that a new term?
I don't have the exact number, but it is a little bit. But I can get it.
That's fine. Oh, sorry, that was the last one?
That's the last contract.
Yeah.
Number 3 is the annual PSBA membership dues. We received this last week, and it goes on the board agenda for approval each year. And the PSBA is really the school boards, it's your association, School Board Members Association, and they provide a lot of services to the school board individuals, members, as far as training and so forth. They also provide the district a lot of information, a lot of training opportunities, a lot of information to the superintendent and so forth. So that's the annual invoice for that.
So it's not just the board that uses them? Do we get policy recommendations?
Yes, we get all policy
It's not just a...
Yep.
Okay.
Not just the board.
What would happen to us if we decided not to do it?
We would lose those resources, training for school board members, policies, just.
All right, just ask him.
Okay. Anybody else, any questions on that? All right. We'll move into the general fund budget review. Yeah, I guess that's you again, Sean.
Yeah, we can start with pupil services if Ernest wants to go first. Is he still up there?
I'm still here.
Yeah, all right.
I'm still standing, don't worry. So the student services budget, the first couple of slides pertain to data that's important for the board to understand and see. You can see this first slide, again, one of two, which identifies the students attending cyber charter schools, and you can see we had one blip year, which was the COVID year, and it's somewhat stabilized, although the number of 136 is slightly higher compared to 2 school years ago. I would anticipate the 24-25 numbers being similar, but right now we don't know until the school year ends, and even at the start of next year when parents make decisions about charter programs. The second slide related to data.
Could you? The alternative education plan?
Yes,
was that because we brought a lot of these children back to school?
Correct.
So, which was a huge money saving.
Graduate and coming back to school. You know, so it accounts for one right now. That number could go up, again, depending on, where we are. I think one of the reasons why it dropped is because of just creatively disciplining students and trying to keep them in school as opposed to paying for them to go to some type of alternative school, which is a pretty significant expense. Second data set is out-of-district placements, mostly special ed kids. You can see that number, 23, 24. We will have students who graduate. Based on that number, I don't have the exact number held to memory, but we should still be in that similar range. We currently have a couple of students right now that may end up on out-of-district placements, a couple of kids that will move because they are not they're not working out within those out-of-district placements, and a couple of one school in particular has called us to have one student relocated, which is a concern because the challenge here is, can we program for the kid? That's the question we always ask from a special ed perspective. And then with the VCIU, those kids are mostly 18 to 22, and I think the board and we are all aware that the IU facilitates our 18 to 22 program. Pressures on the budget, like any year, again, transition services for that 18 to 22. Excellent expense, from what I've learned from the 4 special ed supervisors, the kids are receiving an outstanding experience for those 18 to 22. That number 22 may change depending upon PDE, but right, it used to be 18 to 21, and now it's changed to 18 to 22. So an additional burden for school districts to maintain those students' education until the age of 22. Also, our multiple disability students cost not only for educational services, but also their needs, whether that be technology and other expenses that come because of those students. We do have students, and I think this is across the board, across the Commonwealth and the nation, with more serious mental health needs, which we have to provide services for them within the schools, and even when they attend partial hospitalization programs, we are on the hook for part of their education. This is the overall budget. You can look at a 5-year trend and see the increase from 23-24 to what we are proposing for 24-25. An increase of 6.33%. and in dollars, that's $656,070. These are the different lines, 7 different budget series that this particular budget operates from. And I'll go into more detail within each budget line regarding what it looks like. The first series, the general ed or regular education series, the 23-24 budget is less than our 24-25 budget. This increase is due to costs associated with virtual charter schools.
What is in that series, the regular education? What type
Yes.
of expenses?
So if a parent decides they're going to take their child out of Penridge School District for whatever reason, and it's mostly secondary education kids. So really our target should be ways to help those students remain in the district and continue with a Penridge education. But as you can see, over time, the costs have been, somewhat astronomical again, with an increase of a little over $84,000 in when you compare last year to what we're proposing for this year. Under the 1200 series, which is special education specific, you can see all the different services and supports and programs that fall under special education.
I asked this earlier, but for the, this does not include salaries of professionals. That's
Correct.
not- So it's everything else, so this
Yeah.
could be outside placements?
Yes.
Okay.
And if you look at this specific series, the 1200 series for special education, there is somewhat of a drop, and the real factor that accounts for that drop is legal claims and settlements, which is a credit to the special education teachers throughout the district as well as the special education supervisors. So that dip, we always want to see that be as low as possible, but there's a $91,000 difference when you look at some of these numbers compared to the prior years, meaning legal claims settlements, and then the total dollar amount, which you see there, a little over $129,000. So if we continue to work with parents, work with students, meet their IEPs, and show good faith to the parents. I've attended a number of somewhat contentious IEP meetings over the past month, and I will say that our special ed teachers and special ed supervisors are working hard to make sure kids are receiving the appropriate services based on their IEPs. Other instructional programs. This is an area that, as you can see, the change is fairly significant when you talk about 600 to 2100 being the proposal. However, I do believe that in the research that I've done, that figure of a budget of $600 was exceeded in the 23-24 school
So
year.
it's 600, not 600,000. It's
600.
It's
It
probably
is
not.
definitely
We don't
not
have to put too much time.
600, but the proposal here is a request for 2,100. I'll talk a little bit about 22-23. Although that budget is listed as $400, the actual cost in 22-23 was $1,900. So again, I have to do a little bit of research on that to catch up to why that is. The 1400 series, this is something that has been maintained over the course of time for alternative education. Alternative education is very, very costly for the district, but it also covers, it's not just kids who are in alt-ed schools, but it also covers mental health support programs at the high school and throughout the district, and mostly at the secondary schools, for example, in-school counselors.
That's what's in alternative education?
Yes.
And Those are staff members or just? their-
Services for,
Services.
not,
So
yeah, not
outsourced
personnel.
services or everything but?
Absolutely. Student services, this is somewhat of a deceptive slide. This 2100 series, again, not personnel, but what we spend on books, software, supplies, travel, conferences, everything related to what student services personnel need, our psychologists, our counselors, our social workers, and child accounting. So if you go to the next slide, you'll see what that looks like. And if we can go to the next slide. These are our legal fees, and I know Mr. Dauber just reviewed. If you look at 23-24, it's budgeted at $40,000, and I've dropped that to $35,000. As of, I believe, April, I last looked at what we had expended on legal fees. It was roughly $21,000, and Mr. Dahlberg can correct me if I'm...
For what is that? This
Special
just special
education,
education.
yes. And a part of the challenges, I know they just talked about the rising cost based off of what Sweet Stevens submitted in terms of the contract. There may be some merit to looking at what the cost of a pool counsel would be, whether it's for Sweet Stevens or any other firm, because those costs are growing and we're going to end up paying more without a pool counsel when compared to the pool counsel. The pool counsel also allows us to receive full-day trainings for our administrative staff, our teachers, whatever way we want it to look. And it also covers legal advice, so there's less of an expenditure for the district when comparing the pool counsel versus these services that are based on an hourly rate. And this health services 2400 series, you can see the variance here. However, there's a reason for it. Two primary reasons. We did ask for additional funds to replace obsolete AED machines. They are expensive. And the other piece of this, PDE required that our OT and PT contracted services shift. It used to be under the 1200 series, and now it is under the 2400 series. So again, OT and PT contracted services.
A lot of it's a transfer?
Yes,
But,
correct.
how much is how much of that is the transfer? What was?
I don't have the exact dollar amount. I don't know. Well, no, that's but
You said
he's
some of it
asking
was moved from
specifically
another
for
budget, so-
OT versus PT.
The vast majority of it, the AEDs are about $20,000.
Okay, so it's okay.
It's the vast
So it's not really that
No.
big of a.
No.
That's what.
And we're doing a 2-year replacement of the AED machines throughout the district. The certain models that can no longer be Gen 3, they can no longer get replacement batteries or parts for them. So.
The next slide is a personnel matter. However, this position will be funded by medical access, but that's just an idea of where we are in terms of special ed. That's the addition of one learning support teacher within the high school based on the number of students who will graduate in 2024 versus the number of students moving over from the 3 middle schools. We will have 34 additional learning support students, and really the need relates to caseloads. And so that next slide just shows you the cost associated with that 1.0 special education teacher, again, funded by medical access. And that's it for the student services budget.
Okay, moving right along, Office of Assistant Superintendents, who, that's Kathy, right? Sure.
Yes, I'd be happy to lead it off, Mr. Wurz. So, Mr. Palmer and I have a shared budget. This will look a little different than it has in the past. In prior years, the last 5 years, there were 2 assistant superintendents, one for elementary, one for secondary. So pretty much in terms of programming, teaching, learning, curriculum, etc., we split those budgets. So now, since I have K-12, you're going to see a significant increase in the Office of Teaching and Learning. If you'll go to the next slide, Lori, thank you. And there are 2 main reasons for that. One is all programming will fall under my budget. And the other change is, unfortunately, the ESSER's funding for cyber education is depleted, and we have to budget for it for next year. So they are the 2 main drivers of the increase in this budget, in the 106 program improvement and the Office of Teaching and Learning.
So the ESSER's was paying for the
Correct.
budget, so why is it going up if the money is, it's just how we pay for it, right?
It was,
Am I missing?
I didn't budget for it in my budget.
Okay.
It wasn't in it. So it was coming directly through the grant money, but I didn't have it in my own budget. Correct, John?
But you had the costs for it,
Correct.
so.
It was still going on, we still had many students participate, but it was removed from my budget. So you didn't see that in my budget last year.
But the costs, I mean, the costs were still there, they were just pulled out of another budget, now you're putting them back in.
Putting them back in.
Yeah.
A movement,
Yeah.
right? It's really
Sure, I
the
agree with
movement of
that.
where it came from. I do just want to give the board an update. One of my budgets is program improvement, and we go through program improvement proposals all year. But I just want to give you an update on the programs that you approved to let you know, based on scheduling, how students, which courses the students are participating in, and how many courses, classes that will offer. So we approved civil service military fitness. There'll be 1 section of that. We approved unified PE. There'll be 4 sections of that. There's 102 students who signed up for that. Emergency care, first aid, CPR, AED. There's going to be 7 sections of that in the PE class. And housing and interior design 2 will have 1 section. And then, and I've mentioned this before, we're thrilled, the APGO that we added has 5 sections with 25 students in each. This is what we have currently in our numbers. So I just wanted to give you an update on that. Excuse me. So that would be the first slide. If you want to go to the next. So that's program improvement. We had conversation about what do we do with this budget? Do we increase it? Do we leave it? And what we decided to do was not increase it at all. But I want to give a little background on what this is. 2 program improvements that are pretty large for this year. We have elementary social studies and middle school science. So the current program improvement budget is what we'll bring forth for the middle school science program, that we are looking at options right now. Hopefully by May we'll be in front of the curriculum committee talking about adopting a middle school science series. That is the money that you're looking at currently, the 191. What we had, and that was prior when Dr. Barczyk was here, he had money in federal programs to pay to fund the elementary social studies program. So when we come to committee, that's the 2 funding sources. Because if you looked at 191, it wouldn't cover both of those. I just wanted to make everybody aware so that for next year, we are going to keep that program improvement budget at the same amount. And for next year, the driver is going to be elementary science.
Which is going to cost?
Which will be about that.
Okay.
So that's what that is. And then if we go to the next slide, this is really what I'm talking about in terms of why does this budget look like it does. If you look on the variance side here, it's other professional service, the cyber tuition. That's really what's driving this. And the tech and supplies, of which were not in my budget last year, have been moved to my budget. And Mr. Palmer's going to talk about some things that were in my budget that will be moving to his. But while that cost is high, it's $175,000, I have the numbers of our students currently. We have very few middle school students in cyber. It's mostly at the high school level. And then special education students, you got it? Special education students, cyber tuition is funded through cyber, and that's what Mr. Johnson was talking about. And then everyone else is funded through my budget. But we calculated if our students left and didn't attend Penridge Cyber, our bill would look more like $2 million. It is an exorbitant amount of money in private cyber schools. So we have developed this Penridge Cyber over the years and have been very successful with that. So I just want to make sure everyone understands that is a big number, but it would be significantly higher otherwise. And we pride ourselves on Penridge Cyber.
So it's 175 for us doing it
For us.
in-house?
Correct.
Versus potentially 2 million or so?
Yes.
If we farmed it out. That's excellent. I mean, that's one of the reasons to save the money, is bringing students back.
Yes,
That's
and we
awesome.
do.
That's great.
Thank you. And we do. Some of our students come back, and we really want them back, and we have them participate here at the high school in what's called the Cyber Access Room, and they come and they take part of the day they're in classes, part of the day they are in cyber courses, and of course we have some students who are fully cyber. So that really accounts for the difference in my side of the budget this year. And yeah, do you want to go, Brad?
Yeah. So the next slide is for my budget. Nope, go back one more there. There you go. And as Dr. Scheid said, there are some changes to the structure. So for example, you'll see in the variance here, there are a couple things that are moving into the curriculum department, into her budget. Other professional services, the kindergarten carnival. So the things that were in the elementary budget have moved into her budget entirely. In this office, we've also picked up a few other things, including the Raptor system is being moved into this budget, and other developments that include safety. And in addition to that, we're picking up another $36,000 for employee training and development. So that's why the budget increase is 16%, that additional $24,000. So it's from some of those increases.
But you're moving out stuff too.
We're moving in and moving out.
Yeah. But both your budgets are up.
And that is primarily due to the loss of ESSER's funding. Chester? Oh, you're in the next section? So if you go through the next series of slides, you're going to see a breakdown of where these are going. So you'll see in the 1110 series and regular programs, the Apex Learning and the Edmentum, Fuel Education and Edgenuity. Those are one of the contracts we just passed, or you just approved here. Those are for cyber. And I think that was 300 students at 300 apiece, and if that was, again, outside, it would be significantly, 10,000 apiece at least. The next slide. In the 600 series, that was the Alice online training. That was to be paid through our Title IV budget. changes to general supplies, the carnival, the Grammarly subscription fees, which I believe is an increase over last year, as well as the ESL summer camp that's still running. The 2260 series, under our 600 line, you'll see there a lot of programs that are in there: Link It, Atlas, ClassLink, Canvas. These are all things that are included in our curriculum department, and those are used for teaching and learning. The 2271 series, instructional staff development. You'll see employee training, staff travel, as well as things for meetings, Screencastify's and other teaching supply. We're using PA ETEP, EduLink, which is the program we use to complete our teacher evaluations. In the 2360 series, again, you'll see some employee development there. And you'll see under supplies, elementary office supplies, SurveyMonkey subscription that we do to complete surveys, along with other materials. Additionally, Raptor that's there was moved over from the maintenance budget into the Office of Administration. In the 2836 series, we have our training for non-certified staff, final. And if we go to the last slide, most importantly, you'll see there's a budget increase between our two departments of $302,673. And again, that is primarily due to the loss of ESSER's funds. And those are funds that you hadn't have seen. They weren't included in the budgets because we were paying them through federal funds.
So just to be clear, so 2023, 2024, there was other expenditures, but not on the budget. They were on a separate budget, or like an ESSER's budget, or?
Yeah, they were paid for in addition to what was in our budget.
Okay. So these are not surprises. We knew they were.
Yeah, and I mean, this is one of the difficulties. We knew that this was going to end, and it's over.
Okay. On to the general fund. I guess that's you, Sean. Bye, Sean. All right, that wraps us up.
I appreciate getting a chance to stand up, for sure. And I am cognizant of the time and how tired you folks are. So I will go as fast as I can. And I'm just going to hit the highlights of where we're at, and compared to where we were last month. Side. Just down. Okay. All right, here's my goals for tonight. Capital projects, fund balance, debt service, status of where we're at for 24-25, and how we move forward throughout the rest of the 24-25 budget. Capital projects funding, we ended the year June 30th, 2023, $13.1 million in capital projects fund. We had $6.3 million in bid cost projects that occurred and will be paid during the summer of 2023 that are finishing up. Most of that work's all done, most of that stuff's paid, but that's what's left during the 23-24 fiscal year to pay for the summer projects. So that takes us into next summer with about $6.8 million in capital projects funding. Estimate at June 30th, 2024, roughly $3 million budget surplus to transfer over. And then on July 1st, 2024, out of the new fiscal year, we should be able to transfer roughly $6 million from the general fund to the capital projects fund as part of our debt drop-off. So we then have approximately $7.5 million of bid projects that are already lined up and bid and ready to run starting next summer. That is the rest of the paving on the rest of this campus. Grass kitchen are the two big ones, Kelly. There's a major
Correct.
project. So what happens then at the end of that year, or end of those projects, we will roll forward with about $8.3 million in capital projects fund. Where we're at now is we're waiting for Site Logic to finalize and bring to us their new Site Logic computer software guru technology, great stuff that's going to give us our new capital projects list and so forth. So we have a process to run through to get through that process. So
We also have to look at other things at the.
yes,
Considering the South Auditorium.
yes,
Got to
and
fit
how
into that.
and how yes, and how those projects fit into maintaining our current capital.
Yeah,
Yes.
especially looking a few years out.
Yes, yep, all conversations that we're waiting for Site Logic to finish their process, that we can start having those conversations with the board, because right now, effectively, there's nothing planned for the summer of 2025. I have $9.4 million listed there. That's from the old plan. That was what was left over. Now, a lot of those projects will go into the new, their new system and will be reprioritized and so forth. But right now, there's nothing in line for summer 2025.
We're hoping that Site Logic is going to have details to discuss at our next meeting next month, that we can at least start the conversation of prioritization.
Do we have an ETA for that program?
So the My Site IQ tool that Sean was referring to, we've captured all of the assets. It's a matter of putting price tags and prioritization so that we could bring to the board what's important, what are the next things we need to do over the next 5 to 10 years, in addition to get the lights stay on and all the other projects that are important to the board to put into the mix for discussion.
Goes to Henry, says it's time to go. Okay, so that's capital projects. Next thing is to take a look at debt service. So the big bar to the left is fiscal year 2024. So that's the current fiscal year. We paying about roughly $13 million in debt. That for next fiscal year drops off to about $6.5 million in debt. That's where the money comes from to transfer to capital projects that we talked about. Debt service will remain relatively flat for 3 years, drop off again in fiscal year 2028, and then fiscal year 2029 is the end of the current debt that Benridge has. After our last refinancing was the tech school debt, we saved about $3.2 million in interest costs by doing that refinancing, and we reduced the payback period by 15 years. So restructuring and refinancing saved us about $3.2 million. Our outstanding principal at the beginning of 24-25 will be about $24.8 million. So that's what we will pay off over those next 5 years. When I got here in 15-16, the district was carrying $122 million in debt. So that's how far we've come in 9 years of fiscal management and refinancing debt and savings and so forth. So we're getting there. So what have we done since our last meeting in March? Continue to review revenue accounts and adjust as needed. Continue to review expenditure accounts and adjust as needed, and I'll give you some examples. Continue to review the personnel budget, and most importantly, building level staffing meetings are occurring. They started last week. They'll continue through April 30th. So both assistant superintendents and Tara Mossman are visiting each building, meeting with principals, and going through staffing needs and staffing calculations And the goal here is to make sure that we're staffing adequately, but not overstaffing. And where we see the ability to remove a position from the budget, we're doing so, but we're really doing that at this point, through attrition. So we're not replacing people that are retiring or leaving. Please don't look at this as we're cutting teachers or furloughing. That's not our goal at this point. Our goal is to, if there's a retirement or a resignation and the numbers play out that we still fall within our board policies for number of students per teacher, then we'll remove that position. So we've already found 4 positions that are going to be reduced, and we're only 2 meetings in. 1 meeting in? 2 meetings in. This is just a repeat from last month. It tells you what the Act 1 index is and what's available for the Act 1 index. So we won't spend any time on that. Here's the revenue changes since our March meeting. We've actually reduced our revenue budget by $53,000. And the reason that we reduced our revenue budget by this is because we reduced the expenditure budget, and some of those reductions in the expenditure budget drive reimbursements from the state. So the expense goes down, the reimbursement goes down. So we're just treating each side fairly. So here's our changes. We reduced $258,000 in salaries, another $149,000 in benefits, $125,000 in purchase professional services, and $22,309 in tuition costs, for a total expenditures reduction of $500,000, $554,000. So if you remember, last month we were $1,500,000. We're now under $1 million difference. Total revenues at this point are $159.2. Total expenditures are $160.1. So we're down to $989,000. So we basically cut a third of the deficit in 1 month, and we will continue to work on that. Just the changes here to local revenue and changes in revenue, and all the difference here is in the state reimbursements that I showed you before. So all the rest of the numbers in revenue are the same at this point. And this will show you right now, you saw this slide last month, but right now the very bottom line shows you what a tax increase would be if we balanced the budget at this point with a tax increase. To make up that $989,000, it would mean approximately $48.15 to the median assessed property in the district. So not a large amount. The expenditures by object summary, again, you saw this last month, but I've added where we're at now. The couple of line items that have changed: salaries, benefits, purchase professional services, and then the 500 other purchase services. Everything else is the same. So again, we're going from total expenditures of $160.7 million down to $160.2 million, or that $500,000 that we removed. Just the object summary, little pie chart. So you saw this last month. Just wanted to put this in here in front of you again. This is what we talked about. Debt service dropping from $13 million to $6.3 million. And then an interfund transfer out to capital projects of $6,750,000. Last month we talked about, okay, we'll work our budget down as much as we can over the next few months, and then wherever we end up, we could possibly take it from reduce this $6,750,000 line item to balance the budget. So I think that is.
And that would drop our available for capital projects.
Yes. Yes. So, for instance, if we get the deficit down to $750,000, we would take that $6,750,000, change that to $6 million, and $6 million would go to capital projects. Right. We would use the other $750,000 to balance the budget.
And would it leave us enough to fund what we have planned for next year?
Yes.
I saw that.
Yes. Yep. And budget drivers, so again, wages and benefits, professional services, and the remaining accounts make up the $5.5 million increase in expenditures, and roughly $4.5 million in revenue increase at this time. So our deficit is roughly $1 million. So again, wages and benefits, as we talked about the last 2 months, that's the driving factor in the budget from the contract settlements and so forth. And then the professional services, that's being driven through the special ed costs and so forth. Those are the big drivers. This is just the requested positions. Again, you saw this last month. The position that Mr. Johnson talked about is the first one, and again, we'll be funding that through medical access. Second position is an additional security guard based on the plan that has been put in place for a few years to increase security guards, and we will be able to use our safety and security grant from the state that just came out in November or December when they finally passed the budget to fund most of that position. And then again, when we talk about ESSERS, we talk about that money going away. These are all the positions and the costs that we've put in place over the last 3-4 years that have been funded by ESSERS. Now these will be picked up in the general fund budget. So we are making a very big lift this year in the general fund budget to pick up these costs, not only here, but what Dr. Scheid and Mr. Palmer talked about in their budget. So things that we're doing that are good for kids that we need to continue to do, we're working them into the budget. And to be really, with all the costs that we've talked about, having to pick up that we're only less than $1 million apart at this point in time, and we're doing pretty good. We're getting there. So could be a lot.
I would like to thank you again. We've done this before, but one of the main reasons we're in this position is because you, with your team, renegotiated the debt, and it's been saving us money and continues to save us money. And I think we'd be in a lot worse position if you had timed that deal well.
Thank you.
And, so I would like to thank you again on that, and your team.
Thanks. I appreciate that. And then just the 24-25 budget timeline. We will continue to work on the budget. We'll find out what our property tax relief money is at the beginning of May. And really, that doesn't impact our budget. It's just a dollar for dollar. Whatever we get in, we get back to the taxpayers through the homestead, farmstead. We'll go through our staffing meetings the rest of this month, and then we'll be ready to come back to you guys on May 2nd with our last, well, not last, but the next look at the budget. And we'll have a proposed final budget at May 13th, and Mr. DeRiso will put the budget in on the state the state budget format for you. He doesn't know that yet, but he's going to do that. It does not. And then we'll work through May, and we'll get an initial passage of the budget at the May meeting, and then we will come back in June and have our second and final passage of the budget. And we can make changes between the two. So. And June 17th will be our final passage. So that's where we're at this point. So if there's any questions or anything?
Okay.
We just need a little more time this year to work through it all.
Yeah, well, I appreciate you, really what you did to get the cost down already, so we're heading in the right direction.
We're heading in the right direction, yes. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Dollar.
Thank you.
We are moving along to the posted meter lease.
Yeah.
Okay. Oh, you're going to stay.
Yeah, we're going to put that up there for you. So where we're at, we're coming to the end of our 5-year lease on postage meter. The far right column is our current Pitney Bowes postage machine. Costs us just shy of $300 a month. It is about $17,900 for the total lease. And we have some details there about it. But where we're at, we have costs for 3 different machines. or 3 different companies. The first one is KBS, I'm sorry, KBS. Can we just go back up to the top? Start at the top. Yeah, so the first one is KBS. The second middle one is Quadient, and then another quote for Pitney Bowes. You can see the costs there. They're pretty wide ranging, from $11,900 total, or $189 a month for KBS, $253 a month for the Quadient, and $309 a month for the Pitney Bowes machine. They're all on a state contract or some type of a bid contract. The processing speed for them are very similar. A difference is max envelope thickness. The KBS can only take 0.40 envelope, whereas the Quadient and the Pitney Bowes can take bigger envelopes, and we do a lot of stuff with bigger envelopes. Scale capacities, relatively, it's not a big deal, it's relatively the same. There is a difference in the touch screens and the dimensions of the machines and so forth. But what we've done then, keep it down, bring us the list up. What we did was we did reach out to some districts that have these, the KBS and the Quadient. We have the Pitney Bowes now. Pitney Bowes is it's the top of the line. It's the Cadillac. We don't have any problems with it. It's a great machine, but it's also the most expensive stuff out there in the market. So how can we save some money? Look at other things. Do a good comparison. The KBS, the 4 districts that we talked to, the biggest problem that they all said was doesn't seal very good. Our people run it through, then they end up having to seal it again by hand. So it slows them down, it's time consuming, so forth. So there's frustration with that, plus its thickness is much smaller than the other 2 machines. The Quadient machine, the 4 districts that we talked to reported no issues. They don't have any problems, and these are bigger, big districts in Chamonix, Central Bucks, and then a district over in New Jersey we talked to, and the Bucks County Community College also has Quadient. No one had anything bad to say about Quadient. And then, of course, the Pitney Bowes, we don't have anything bad to say about Pitney Bowes. We like them. My recommendation at this point is to try Quadient. It seems like we've got great reviews on it. The cost of it is going to be $253 a month compared to $309 a month. I know that's not a big price difference, but every little bit helps. So that's our recommendation at this point, is to try something new and try the Quadient machine. And it is on state contract, and we have 3 different examples or prices for the board to choose from. So.
Any questions on that? Comments? Okay. Well, I like that you brought it to us with research done. You know, it's not just a price comparison. So
I think
a low bidder doesn't seem like the good one. So yeah, I think.
Thank Mrs. Schuler from my office. She did all the legwork on making all the phone calls and everything. So she's a great help in this process. So, and that's that one. And the last item we have, Mr. Wers, is the
RFP.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. Pretty much the only thing we added was the dates.
Yes, sir.
And, just wanted to let the audience know, but there'll probably be somebody watching. I worked with the administration. We all laid out a timeline that caused the least interference with what we are doing at school, with everyone being new. So we decided to wait until June to start that process. And we do have more time in the summer, so that's when we'll put the effort into it. And it's not, that's the only reason we did the timing the way it is. So just wanted to address that. Any other questions on that? We will put it to a vote then on the board. going. All right, anybody have anything else to add since it's so late? The next Finance Committee meeting is scheduled for May 2nd, and that's it. Meeting is adjourned. Oh, yes.
Do we have any?
Yeah.
Do we have any